Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? And I'm just about to lose my mind. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? Not much longer would you be mine. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? And I'm just about to lose my mind. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? Not much longer would you be mine. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? And I'm just about to lose my mind. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? Not much longer would you be mine. Don't you know that I heard it through the grapevine? time we drip, drop caught up in the night and we ain't ready to go home yet. See, I won't keep on going until they say so. And even when they do, it's so hard for me to go. Some others at the cloakroom and some others out the door. We can't keep on going in the middle of the floor. Yeah, I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So come and play me just one more song. I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So you can hear me with the lights on. I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So come and play me just one more song. I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So you can hear me with the lights on. You can watch me if you like, 'cause I really don't care. I'll be the same if it was only me inside of me. 'Cause this is what I'm meant to be, yeah, I ain't going nowhere. You have to come and move me if you want me out of here. See, I won't keep on going until they say so. And even when they do, it's so hard for me to go. Some others at the cloakroom and some others out the door. We can't keep on going in the middle of the floor. Yeah, I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So come and play me just one more song.
Back from the graveyard, it's been a few months, but it's all calm. Been observing, now back on the surface, I'm gonna blow up like napalm. I won't say that I took time out, big grafting, cause those what I'm about. And said man, wanna move like yeah, emotional, can't take my name out the mouth. But despite that, my precision will take that, pull off your head. I man, few man talk quick online, but when I see them back six, they do jam. Headshot bars, they have jams. It's so hard, I'm saying that face, told my bum, I still rocking that bass. And watch when we drop that in a race.
Race one more, please make them baby. It's the sound boy, me not done, you don't see me. Breathe the heat in the beat while I sleep. Know that I'll see how the vibe so sweet. Bad girl, stepping out and done. Lights on, still out the bad boy down. Take it and I took it and I took it and I drop it and I rock till I said it. I keep on moving with the lights on. So come and play me just one more song. I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So you can scare me with the lights on. I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So come and play me just one more song. I keep on moving with the lights on, with the lights on. So you can scare me with the lights on.
Then I come with a headshot bars at bars at bars at. But set my dough when I show up, 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 when I show up. Race. Watch when we drop that in a race.
Many officers dispersing large gatherings are often subject to abuse and violence from the selfish individuals who choose to attend these, and this is completely dispersing large gatherings are often subject to abuse and violence from the selfish individuals who choose to attend these, and this is completely But it's illegal parties like these, where predominantly young people are raving and breaking the rules.
Welcome in, everyone. Welcome in. Happy Thursday, everyone. Hope everyone is having a fantastic Thursday afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We have a lot of drama to address because of this flag right here behind me, and we're going to address that today. While we wait for people, I forgot to do Instagram. Hold on, let me do that real quick. But hope everyone's having a good one. I sure am. We have a great interview lined up today, and we have a lot of news to cover. My deepest apologies, chat, for missing an entire week of news, drama, entertainment, passion. No, I'm joking. Throw some little cat emojis in chat. Let me turn down the music just a tad. But we'll still be listening to it. Anyways, I hope everyone's having a good one. Camera just a tad. There we go. All right, there we go. Now we can see the LGBT flag too. Okay, let me do shout out in Instagram. So if you'll just bear with me real quick. Hey there, everyone. Happy Thursday. We have a great stream coming up today, or right now, actually. Sorry, I've been out of it for a while, but we are good. We have a great interview with Luis Hernandez of Riverside City Council. We have... Hold on. Discard. Okay. That is not going to be... Here we go. We got it. All right. Hey, everyone. We have a fantastic stream happening right now. Hit the link right there. At 4 p.m. in about half an hour, we have Luis Hernandez of Riverside City Council coming on the stream for an exclusive interview. He was an amazing candidate who apparently won his race outright, or the primaries outright, and does not have to go through the general election again. So let's see what he's all about, right? And then later on, we're gonna cover my favorite, Randy Corrigan. Shout out to him. Yesterday was fun in his chat, so be sure to hop in my chat if you want to have more shenanigans and also more informative information. And then finally, we are going to address this. We're going to address this right there. We have a lot to talk about, so be sure not to miss it. Okay, well. That's good. All right. Thank you. Chat right there. Although I don't think anyone's in chat yet. That's okay. Okay, hold on. Let me post this real quick. Let me tag people. Right now. Okay, there we go. Cool. Okay, chat, not gonna lie, kind of feeling my hair right now. I just haven't been taking care of it at all, and I literally just spritzed some water in it, and it has such good volume. And my curls are really good. Sorry, it's a good day, I think. All right. Let's see. Luis Riverside. On at 4 p.m. Also, I guess I should say shout out to Dens 1000. As always, homie with the great rally house music. I will probably always use this music for my pre-stream because it's just so good, bro. And also, look at it, homie goes and makes his own videos recording his games. No one else is in the chat yet. Wait. Sorry, Rally House is good. Oh, be sure to like this video if you have not liked it already. All right. Alright, we're just gonna throw it into the story. Okay. Alright. While we're waiting for that to post, we still have half an hour. You know, I hope Luis got the email I sent him. Okay, he said he got it this time. Cool. Alright. Sweet. Okay, real quick. I have to react to this because I just had so much fun with this. And I'm sorry. I know my entire household is tired of me sharing this video, I am sure. But like I said in the preview of the Instagram reel that I was making, we had some fun in Teamsters 1932's chat yesterday. Okay, hold on. This is a little clip that I edited together. Oh my God, homie, you need to... Okay, anyways, let's listen to this.
What's going on here?
Yeah, so she had you on her stream.
Oh, Angelina. I was just thinking of her.
Tucci?
Yeah.
Angelina Tucci, yes.
Tucci?
Yeah.
She's wonderful.
Why is there an M here? Is it spelled with an M?
So that,
Yeah, huge shout out to Angelina. Is that what's the name of her podcast? Angelina? Yeah, see? You tell me to do a shout out for her, but you don't give me all the information.
Oh my God, I forgot the audio was shit on the...
Redland Stewards want to get more active and want to stay active.
It's only on the left side.
And I know I'm going to get it wrong, Angelina.
But
I'm sorry.
no, I love you, Kathleen.
Third space. There's home, work, and the union. And some people it's church, but it's like it's like the third space for people, and it's very powerful. It's like a family. It's like a family.
What a nice way to put it.
Right?
I haven't heard it like that.
Yeah, and I know I messed it up. I know she's gonna probably text me.
Well, shout out to her. Shout out to her. That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
She should text
Okay, so yeah, I totally hijacked that stream. But anyways, shout out to Randy Corrigan. Can't wait to get him on the stream. I'm waiting for your email reply back, homie. Or I don't know if that's left up to Robert. But okay, here. Real quick, let's cover Argentina. Because we gotta. I guess this YouTuber is probably a person that covers football drama.
We need to talk about Argentina.
How long is this?
Because
this
there
is
is
16
a strong
minutes.
and heavy debate circling the circles. Circling the circles? FIFA wants Messi to win it again. Argentina, it is rigged. Argentina's getting special treatment. Look, the fallout since the Argentina-Egypt game, which you would expect given the context of the game to be an incredible moment. Egypt, an underdog, was able to go 2-0 up against Argentina, already having a goal chalked off, and with about 10 minutes left to go, They were nearly knocking out Messi and Argentina to make it to the quarterfinals of a World Cup for the first time in their history. It was a fantastic moment. And Argentina made a comeback in the final 10-11 minutes that everyone watching the game of football would find it as an incredible moment and one of the greatest comebacks.
Okay, sorry to cut him off, but I thought he was gonna. He's getting really into the trenches here, but that's okay because I think he's a football fan. But okay. My gripe, or I shouldn't say my gripe. Let's just start with the facts, right? Actually, Philly D.
Well, you've got the Lionel Messi World Cup rigging allegations just blowing up right now. Joe Rogan and JD Vance's bombshells on Epstein and Israel expose a lot, including a MAGA ticking time bomb. I'll be live tonight to cover and break down Trump's controversial primetime address with your favorite DeFranco and Georgia State House candidate Lindsey DeFranco. So be
Okay. Sorry, real quick. We got the special Michelob Ultra World Cup bottle can. I had to get it for my abuela. My abuela had to have it because she is a Messi diehard fan. Oh gosh. Okay. Let's
be subscribed and have all notifications turned on. And Trump's teleprompter guy reportedly got busted betting on Trump's speeches. We're talking about all that and even more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, starting with this. Is FIFA rigging the World Cup final? Or that's something you've seen many people asking and saying as Argentina's been advancing through knockout rounds. And you have them officially securing their spot in the finals after beating England in another stunning comeback. Right? And if you've been on World Cup Twitter, which is a very special version of Twitter, you've probably seen a wide array of largely AI-generated memes that show Argentina's Messi, often depicted as a princess, a baby, or a woman, cozying up with the FIFA president, Gianni Infantino. And the memes of kind of all kind, they do hit on general themes. These two talking about rigging games, handling bribe money, you know, you get the idea.
Why is Messi wearing his full kit but then dress shoes? That's how you know this AI is trash. Okay. All right.
But it's also not just AI memes. You've got so many people that are broadly accusing Messi of cheating. You've got things like this TikTok with over 2.2 million likes that just baselessly alleges that he made millions of dollars for extra penalty kicks. Others have also argued that FIFA rigged the tournament to give Argentina a clearer path to the semifinals. Or you've got people claiming that the team was set up with easier games and noting that they didn't face off against any of the top 10 teams in the FIFA ranking before their match against England. And then you're seeing plenty of allegations of referee bias. And I really want to stress to you, these are just some
I think the
of
referee
the theories that have been floating
bias
around out
is
there. But
what's
also,
always been there.
This is by no means the first time that there have been allegations about FIFA's favoritism towards Argentina spreading online. Right? Argentina ops, they've been calling Messi FIFA's princess since the last World Cup in 2022, which Argentina won. And while you had a lot of people sharing a lot of feelings about the Argentina-Cape Verde game, I mean, the favoritism allegations, they really came back in full force this year after Argentina beat Egypt 3-2 in the final minutes of their game. Right? And that one was especially contentious because the refs voided an Egyptian goal due to a foul, but that apparently declined to review a later potential foul by Argentina shortly before they scored the winning goal. And it wasn't just, soccer fans that were spreading the favoritism theories. The coach of Egypt's team called the game unfair and said that the team suffered injustice. He even explicitly suggested that FIFA may have rigged the game to favor Argentina, saying perhaps they wanted to keep the world champion in the competition. Perhaps they wanted Messi to stay in the running. It has now been reported that Egypt has officially filed a complaint challenging the results and asking for an investigation into that referee. Though, of course, FIFA officials and the manager of Argentina's national team have denied the allegations of favoritism. But that's also not where the controversy ends, because you have many UK leaders and fans calling for the team to be investigated after some players held up a political banner following their semifinal win yesterday, with the banner in question being translated to "The Malvinas are Argentine," with that being in reference to the islands.
That's another thing we got to get into, and we don't have enough time to get into this right now, but we will get into it because my God, we are going to have surprise Latin American news with Angelina Tucci. Because this is, oh my God, I can't believe that they would do this again. This is crazy. But yeah, I basically, we'll get into it later.
Located 300 miles off of the coast of Argentina, which are also known as the Falkland Islands. And so just for a quick history lesson there, while many different countries have claimed the islands over the past several centuries, it's been under de facto British rule since the UK reestablished its rule in 1833. But Argentina, they've always claimed that the islands were illegally taken, and in 1982, the military government invaded in order to try and take them back, initiating the Falkland War, which lasted 74 days and actually ended during the 82 World Cup when Argentina surrendered. But also since that war, Argentina has still claimed that they have sovereignty over the islands. So that, as 99.8% of the island's residents voted to remain.
That's ridiculous. Okay, well, we're going to skip over that. Sorry. Here, let's hear about
that FIFA has pulled some incredibly questionable moves recently, which also isn't that great for an organization that has a deep history of corruption. But for now, we'll have to wait to see how all this plays out, and that goes for, investigations, probes, as well as who's going to win the World Cup, which, hey, a question for you. Who do you think is going to win the World Cup? But also I'll say, Argentina and FIFA, they are not the only ones who found themselves in some tricky waters. Because this Joe Rogan, JD Vance situation you got on your hands, it's a wild one. Because this new interview, it really tested both of them on some crucial controversies inside of this MAGA civil war we've seen play out over the past year and a half. Namely, the Epstein files and the war in Iran.
Okay.
And you've had
that's it on Argentina. Yeah. So that's crazy.
World Cup, I guarantee you.
Yeah. I knew Messi was going to go to the World Cup. Because the whole thing, I said this at the get from the beginning, right? I was like, wasn't 2022 supposed to be Messi's last World Cup? He was supposed to retire, and then he got hired by whatever the soccer team is in Miami, and then all of a sudden he's in this World Cup again. Bro, is he going to be in the next World Cup too? And every World Cup, he's Cher or some washed up artist who's like, I'm on my last world tour. This is the last one, I promise. And it's really not. It's like, homie, you're still touring. You're still alive. I know you are doing this in anticipation that you're going to, be overshadowed by someone else in the future. That goes for Messi as well. And that's why he's like, that's my personal opinion. He's trying to rack up the all the rank and all the awards, right? He's trying to rack up all the awards so that way he has a legacy that outlasts all the cheating scandal. Because that's the real sad thing. Is Messi is actually a very talented footballer, right? He's a very talented soccer player. I saw him ever since I was a child. From, ever since I knew soccer, I've only known Messi, right? He's very talented, very good, and this would be the type of thing that would completely overshadow his entire legacy and, just, write him away from the history books, and I feel really bad for that, but, I don't know. I don't know how much he's cheating in there or what's going on or, how much it is being involved. I know that the markets, the crypto market or the freaking the event markets like Kalshi and Poly market, those things are making money. So that's another incentive for sports to be messed up or, tampered with. But yeah, we'll watch that later. Let's do a quick little bit about Riverside and our guest Luis Hernandez. Okay, hold on. I feel like they covered him here. Value Hernandez. Nothing, unless I spelled Hernandez wrong. Hernandez. Pete Aguilar. City Council. Nah, okay, I don't think. All right. Well, let's go to his little campaign page. All right, so he's running for Ward 6. He was to be councilman of Ward 6. And we'll ask him detailed questions and stuff, but I just really don't know that much about him, but reached out to him and he graciously accepted an interview. I will always give people treat them kindly and with fairness. Not that I think he's going to be anything bad or anything, but sorry. So anyways, Luis Hernandez, why I'm running. I'm running for City Council, Ward 6, because Ward 6 deserves a representative who shows up, listens, and leads with integrity and tenacity. Too many families feel unheard, too many neighbors feel overlooked, and too many decisions are made without the transparency our community deserves. My entire career has been about service, helping people gain access, opportunity, and dignity. Okay. Luis Hernandez, Riverside. Cause I forget which. Okay, Ward 6. Wards and neighborhoods. Who's the current? I should know this. It should be in my Pokedex. Riverside City Council. I want to say this is the one. No, that's not the one. Sabrina Cervantes. Oh, they already updated it. Bro, I need to see the previous ones. Here we go. Let's see. Ballotpedia has what we need. Oh, no. Oh, that's right. Bro, I wish I could get Mayor Patricia Locke Dawson on. She seems so cool. She seems like a fun person to talk to, I should say. Okay, City Council. List of current... Oh, no. Oh, they don't have it. 2021. Let's see, 2024. That was 2 years ago. I don't know if Ward 6 would have been up. Ward 1, Ward 3, Ward 5, 7. Okay, let's go back to, I guess 2020. I think they served 6-year terms. I'm not sure. Not change, bro. Oh, no, that was just mayoral election. Here you go. I guess 2021. Maybe they pushed it off. Okay. Okay, Jim Perry. That's the previous guy. All right, we'll be sure to ask about him. So why did he leave, or did he just not make it? He assumed office in 2013, and his term. Okay, so he ran for re-election to represent. Oh, in 2021. Okay, hold on. Council election Ward 6. Here we go, Riverside Record. Hey, best mod in chat. Hell yeah. Welcome in, Stardust City Hag. It's good to see you. I miss you. I hope you're doing good. I hope the girls are being good too. Okay. Let's briefly read this. We still have some time. Let me open up the Zoom just real quick because let me just have it ready. I can't wait to get 2 monitors that are the same size. Okay, we got that there. We will just leave that. We'll start it in a little bit. Okay. So yeah, Ward 6 candidate Luis Hernandez declares victory. Unofficial results. So this is from June 22nd of this year. Luis Hernandez, one of 3 Riverside City Council candidates running for Ward 6 last week, declared victory as an unofficial election results showed he had secured the necessary votes to win the seat outright. I am grateful that the residents have chosen me to be their voice at City Hall, Hernandez said in a statement. I believe that every Riverside resident deserves a seat at the table, and I promise to work hard every day to make our city government more transparent, equitable, responsive, and inclusive. That's great. Hernandez, a disability service specialist and city commissioner on the Board of Ethics, oh hell yeah, is set to replace longtime ward councilman Jim Perry, who announced his retirement. Okay. Um, so I wonder if it was a retirement. I'm sure he was just like probably a good guy. Um, and just served out his term. We'll ask Mr. Hernandez about that soon. Um, Earlier this month, Perry said he would step down from his role by July to pursue a new opportunity, believing at the time the race would go to a runoff. In order to avoid a November runoff, candidates need to secure 50% of their vote. Initial returns posted by Riverside County Registrar of Voters showed Hernandez had received 46% of the vote. Over the coming days, as ballots continued to be counted, Hernandez's lead continued to increase. 8 days after the election, and just hours after Perry announced his plans to leave office early, Hernandez cleared the 50% threshold. Oh, I see. So he's just going to like hop in. That's cool. Okay. In subsequent updates, Hernandez has maintained about 50.36% of the votes to replace Perry without creating a vacancy once the results are certified. Congratulations to Mr. Okay. Okay, that's just other people who are running. Osporta. Okay. If that remains the case, I want to sincerely congratulate. Okay, these are other people. Throughout his campaign, Hernandez said he would focus on supporting small businesses, strengthening youth programs, and ensuring city services were accessible and responsive to the city's residents. Let's see. Okay, so let's pull up let's pull up Google Earth real quick. Whoops. How do I close this? There we go. Thank you. Okay. Not Lake Elsinore. Here we go. Riverside. Jeez. Okay. And we have the map here. Damn, Riverside City Council was on it. I mean, Riverside City government was on it in replacing and updating all this stuff. Damn, powered by Esri. Whoops. There we go. The legend. Okay, 6. Okay. So it's this. Oh, I see. It's like La Sierra area. Okay, so it's the brown one. Okay. By the 91. Magnolia. Oh, Galleria. Okay. Interesting. I think it's over here. Oh, yeah, La Sierra. Where's the Galleria? Magnolia. Let's find Magnolia. Okay. Street names are not coming up. Riverside Freeway. Oh, that's right, because I'm on stupid Google Earth. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. All right, let me okay. So that's the Ward 6 area. Let's see. Okay, where damn, downtown Riverside's up here. Okay. Oh, this is the university area. Okay. Okay. All right. I know Alessandro Heights because I think there's a school there called Alessandro Elementary. I think. I just remember that school. They were always good with their payments, I think. Okay. All right. So seems like it's mostly houses. Maybe some apartments? No, those are housings as well. And then the mall. Okay. And then this little part south of the 91. Interesting. I mean, it's they have seven districts, which is cool. Um I guess cuz they have a lot of people, right? Yeah, 7 districts. I don't know I don't know why I feel like I got to get these other people on. Like I don't know. Okay, let me just open up this Zoom meeting, and whenever Mr. Hernandez is ready, oh, I need to start my virtual camera. There we go. Okay. Whenever he's ready, he can hop on in. Okay. Make that smaller. Okay. We will be on the lookout for that. No, I do not need the AI companion. Okay. But yeah, feel free to drop any questions in the chat if you want me to ask him any questions. But yeah, I can't wait to talk to him and learn a little bit more. Okay, that's right. He just got sworn in too, which is crazy. I mean, not crazy. That's cool. Just never really knew that they would move this fast pace when someone wants to retire. Like, what was the guy going to? What was his name? I think Perry something. Okay, city officials welcomed its newest member on July 7th, swearing in Luis Hernandez to represent Ward 6 after certifying the results of the June 2nd municipal election and later anonymously appointing Edward Enriquez as Riverside's interim city manager. Okay, well, that's interesting. Okay, looks like he is in. Let's get him started here. Let me make sure the audio is good. Hey there, Luis. I can't hear you, and I don't think anyone else can hear you yet. So give me a second here to fix that. There we go. Zoom meeting. Oh boy. All right. There we go. Okay. Maybe it's Zoom that is being ridiculous with me. Oh yes, speaker. Here we go. Okay, I think I might be able to hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I sure can. Heck yeah. Sweet.
Okay.
Thank you. Welcome in, Luis. Let me get you on screen here. Thank you so much for being patient with me and for being patient and setting this up on the back end. We've been talking about it for a while and I'm glad we got it.
I know. Ever since I was campaigning, I know we had been talking about having this interview, and I appreciate the opportunity. So.
Oh yeah. Well, I guess first and foremost, I should congratulate you on winning outright, which is really cool. So I mean, you're already sworn in and everything.
Yeah,
but,
thank you.
Yeah. So sorry, before I get ahead of myself, one thing I like to do is ask everyone who comes on the show, were you born and raised in the IE or where at in the IE? Or if you weren't, what do you love so much about the IE that has kept you here?
So originally, my family's from East LA. We moved to the Inland Empire in the early 90s. I moved to Riverside on my own in 98 as I graduated, and I've stayed here ever since. What I love about what I initially attracted me to Riverside and the Inland Empire was that it's not quite LA, but it's not quite, the middle of nowhere. It was that perfect in between where, it's a city. I love being in the city. I love being around people. And it just felt like that perfect in between. And there was just a lot of, there was a good mix of different people here. And I really, really like that a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. The city life. I lived a couple years in Chicago, and city life is not for the faint of heart. And you really you feel like you're running all the time. But yeah, I feel like Riverside is a city, but it's not like crazy like LA or one of the bigger cities, and it does feel a little bit more does have like small town feel sometimes, but also does have like downtown city feels. So that's cool. That's really cool that you moved here. You said that your family moved here first and then you moved out to Riverside. Where did you initially live when you moved out to the Inland Empire?
So initially, my family moved to Lake Elsinore, of all places.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's way out
Yeah,
there.
and that was in the early 90s. I think biggest thing they had going was like a Walmart and like a movie theater. Or
Wow.
no, back then it was a Kmart.
Kmart.
But
That's right.
yeah, it's really built out over the years. Had the chance to visit a couple years back, and it's really grown since then. But I enjoyed living there, but it was just too much. It was too far away from the city, where I'm used to when we were living in LA. And I had friends that went to college out here and went to school, and I would come out here and visit them. And once I saw what Riverside was like, I was like, I'm moving out here as soon as I can. So as soon as I graduated, just moved there and never looked back.
That's cool. That's cool. What did you study? And what's your background? A little bit professional background, I guess. I really don't know too much about you.
Well, now here's the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So I actually work for before I came when before I was sworn into city council. I worked for a local nonprofit called Blind and Support Services, and we work with low vision and non-sighted individuals to prepare them and teach them the skills to rejoin the workforce. People lose their vision due to diabetes and other
Yeah.
illnesses. And sometimes they lose their job as a result. There's some people who lose hope and think, well, what am I going to do with my life now? And with them going through the Department of Rehabilitation and being sent to local nonprofits like ours, we're able to, work with them and teach them the skills with screen reading, technology, and other devices, along with preparing them, how to use the Microsoft Office applications that most companies
Yeah.
utilize for their day-to-day. It really helps a lot of individuals regain their confidence, and some of them have been able to go back to the same type of work they were doing.
Wow.
There's some individuals that just out of school and don't know what to do. You know it allows them, again, gives them that confidence and the skills to go out into the world and look for job opportunities that they may have not thought about, or didn't think was a possibility before going through those programs. So
Yeah.
it's very meaningful work. I still work there, but I've kind of taken a step back from that to focus more on city council work,
Mm-hmm.
which is can be pretty intense. So,
I can't even
um,
imagine.
yeah.
So that leads me to my next question. Is this your first time running for an elected office or? have you been in politics before?
So going back to high school, I was involved with like the Mecha Club,
Oh,
you
okay,
know,
cool.
being involved with that, organizing cultural events, food drives, things like that. Um, throughout my life, I really didn't get involved that much, and then I started gaining interest in local politics, and uh, I got applied to, and got appointed to the Board of Ethics. Um,
Ah,
it's it was there was Ward 6 isn't really a super politically active area in comparison to some of the other wards here in Riverside. And so there was a lot of openings on different commissions and boards. But when I saw the Board of Ethics was open, I was like, I really am passionate about transparency and accountability in our local government. And that was something that just really appealed to me. I applied, and luckily, former council member Perry appointed me to that, and I was on there for about a little over 2 years, and I really enjoyed every minute of it. So, but
wow.
other than that, first time running for anything.
That's amazing, and I think very commendable. This a lot of people that I've been talking to who have run for office, or this election cycle, it's their first time, and I think that's like the trend, kind of across the United States, and I think it's really good. It's so we need more people that are just normal people like us. It seems like you're pretty passionate about helping others, right? Uh, on the board of ethics, what kind of things would you encounter? Or yeah.
So, for the most part, a lot of the time was just reviewing like the rules and regulations when it came to, the municipal code as far as it applied to the Board of Ethics, and the process when it came to when residents would file a complaint against, a public official. And for
Mm,
the most part, those are the most exciting parts, is when you deal with, complaints against a public official. People can get really riled up, and it's
yeah.
pretty interesting sometimes. A lot of the times it would go nowhere just because there's the prohibited conduct, which, if a public official, and even back then, us as board members, like if we violated them, we could have a complaint filed against us too. So it wasn't just elected officials. But you know, I think a lot of people struggle to understand, maybe, the difference for, what's prohibited conduct, what's like the code of ethics, how people should to present themselves, in public office. And
Mm,
those are guidelines more, but the prohibited conduct is mostly what we would go off of. And people would get kind of worked up sometimes, like, oh, they filed a complaint against so and so, and it's, a lot of times it would go nowhere. But when it would, I feel like this is part of what kind of prepared me for running for city council. Is no matter what you decided, you were always gonna upset somebody, right?
yep, that's true. You can't
So,
please everyone. And if you're in politics to
right,
be a people pleaser, I think that's where we run into a lot of trouble.
right. And so, you know, no matter what, somebody would be unhappy with us, and sometimes people would take jabs, and on social media, or in articles. And so you really have to, if you don't have a thick skin already, you have to grow some. Otherwise it's going to be very challenging for that individual to stay committed to staying on those boards and commissions. But just the technicality of, like, being aware of the municipal code and some of the process really helps prepare you more for running for local office. So it
Yeah,
was pretty
definitely.
great.
You're so yeah, that was I was gonna say that At least what I would want in someone who's a first time candidate is experience working in government or working with government or, and that definitely sounds like you have a lot of experience in that. So that's great. Um, can you tell me a little bit about Ward 6, right? Your district or your ward. What's like we talked a little bit about the kind of that you said it wasn't too much of there's not too many people that are involved in the politics as some of the other districts, right? But like what's kind of like the demographic? Is it, like what kind of people live in Ward 6?
So Ward 6 is I like to think of it, and I know former council member Jim Perry said this a lot too from my interactions with other individuals, is Ward 6 is very different from the rest of the wards. It's mostly working families, right? 8 to 5, people working really hard. Um, mostly Latino district. I believe like somewhere around 60% of our community is made up of the Latino population.
Wow.
Working families. So that can play a part in people's ability to be more involved in local politics, because they have families and they work, and it can be difficult to commit so much time to being on boards or commissions or getting involved in local politics. So it's that's one of the challenges that we overcome in this district. Now, to say that it's not politically active at all is when, like, for example, there are ICE raids, or things with ICE are in the news, or brutality against residents. You'll see protests on the corner in this area, especially right down Magnolia and Tyler. A lot of the community comes out and supports those types of the type of freedom of speech that people like to express when they feel frustrated.
Yeah.
So it's politically active in different ways. There are little community groups here, but not as many as you would find many in other wards. But we do have the challenge of filling some spaces with boards and commissions in this area, and I'm gonna try to recruit individuals to serve on those boards and commissions, because I think it's a great way to get just to kind of dip your toe into local politics, get a taste for it, and see maybe if there's some younger individuals who are interested in getting involved, maybe in their 20s or 30s, to really see what it's like and see if it's for them, because I think we really need to push that our younger community get more involved in local politics, because people don't realize a lot of times how much of an effect it can actually have on their lives.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. It reminds me of my one friend who we went to college together. He's very active in Moreno Valley, and he's like 22, right? And he's running for a water board, and it's just like this is the kind of thing I also want to see more of. More because I'm in my 30s, right? To see a 20-year-old, going out there and getting to know his community, getting to know what the people want. And I would love to see his career blossom and see what the future holds, because, not only would he be, something long term, but like, bringing in more people his age, right? And rallying up that the youth and really getting the younger voters to like actually have a stake in it, right? Because it is going to be our future one day, right? I think a lot of young people, or maybe young people throughout time, just have had this idea that politics is like for old people, or it's been dominated by older people. I have nothing against older people. I love older people. They have the best stories, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes we get into situations where there's like I don't want to name any names, but at the national level there's people that are, you know, not around, not well, they're just like, and it's like, how can you do your job? I'm all in favor for, giving people time off when they're sick, of course, but like, this is really important stuff happening. So, yeah,
And,
it's oh, go ahead.
and you make a lot of really good points, because that's the mistake I initially made when I was younger, is seeing the national level of politics versus the local level of politics. There are a lot more younger people involved in local politics than there are, I feel, on a national level. And number one, it's inspiring to see. And it can be very different on a local level than on a national level, but it's inspiring to see more younger
Mhm.
individuals getting involved in local politics, because you're right, it allows them to connect to that younger base of voters. And I really want to see more of that. I think it's great because, as we were knocking on doors and talking to people, I got a lot of younger individuals who are like, "Well, I don't think it'll make a difference." And I was like, "But
Mm.
it really can make a difference. It determines, a lot of what happens in your community and what direction it goes in." And so, reaching that base of voters is super important to me. And I think having more individuals who are involved on a local level can really inspire younger voters to get more involved. But it can affect so many things on a local positively on a local level, because people are more informed. And you're right, there's the demographics. Like when we looked at the majority of voters in this area, we don't really have a high turnout of voters compared to other districts here in Riverside. And it tended to be individuals like 40 on up. And not that people underneath that age bracket didn't participate and vote, but the majority tended to be 40 on up. And we want to try and change that as much as possible. But for people to be younger individuals to be informed, to be active in their local communities. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole nother thing for the youth. I do fear for them, but I hope we can figure things out. But it's like there's the like almost hopelessness. The saying, uh, politics doesn't matter, and it's like, wow,
Mhm.
no, that's not true. But you really genuinely feel that, and it's like, I don't know, maybe it's something that they'll grow out of. I don't know, but
Yes.
we'll see. So, anyways, we were talking about your district. What are and I know like some cities, like city of San Bernardino, they have like a neighborhood like captains, not captains, but they like break up neighborhoods and have leaders for or representatives for the neighborhood. Um, do you have something like that in your district, or would have something like that, or how do you connect with the community?
So, um, we only have probably like two community groups. One is made up of that older population that we were discussing earlier. Um, which isn't bad, right? It's always good for every different individuals at different ages to participate in, the elections, things like that. But both of those groups kind of seem to be in that age bracket, where it's people like, in their 40s, 50s, 60s on up. And they're small, but they're well known in the community. um, and going to those meetings, I've been an active member of one for the longest time, just to be able to go and see, what is important to the local community. And that's a great way to really like have a pulse on what is important to your area, because every area is different, right? Ward 1 is very different from our ward. And the concerns may be very different. So the other one I didn't have a really good opportunity to be a part of, just because it was in the mornings, and I worked 8 hours a day, so it was difficult to participate in that one. The other one I was speaking about was in the evenings, right? That is one thing I do want to try and focus on, is because we live in a area where it's the demographic is a lot of working families, trying to make town halls or meetings in the evenings, and perhaps even on the weekends, to make it easier for more of the community to come out and participate. Because when we were campaigning, um, most of the time it would be in the evenings or on the weekends when we would go knocking on doors, and we had obviously a really good reception to that, right? And it's because you have to have a good understanding of your community. You have to know what does it consist of? Who are you trying to reach out to? And if you're going out there during the day and nobody's home, you can knock on 1,000 doors, 5,000 doors, and it didn't really have the impact that you wanted, versus going out to the community when when they're home. But it requires sacrifice. Like, again, it was work, and campaign was basically my life for like those 5 or 6 months, and it was intense. But having that connection with the community, knowing like, hey, you live in a mostly working families area, this is when they'll most likely be home. This is when you can interact with them. But if you want them to come to you, right? Here's the difference: is when you're campaigning, you're going out to them, right? If you want them to participate, if you want them to be active, if you want them to participate in local government, you have to make it more accessible to those working families. And part of that is having things maybe in the evenings or on the weekends, when they can actually participate in local government meetings and town halls. So that is one way, a couple of different ways that we plan to really reach out to the community in this area.
That's cool. Yeah, I always think about like maybe I don't know. This is me just fantasizing about future politics. Like everyone has like a
Mhm.
little WhatsApp group, and like there used to be like neighborhood watch organizations, but we could have like a I know some that kind of happened with the like neighborhood app, I think, or I forget. It was
Mhm.
the yeah, they had different neighborhoods, and it was really cool to just like see people post, and it's like, "Oh, thank you for letting me know that there's a coyote, 2 blocks away from me." Like that's really important information for like, those of us that have pets, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, that's like I would love to see like, more social media, but then I do fear about like, like AI, like bots or people that aren't in the district coming. So yeah, it really does have to be like a in-person type of thing, or you just you know your residents really well, and they know you. Like yeah, so that's cool. So you've
And
been go ahead.
you hit on something that's really important, because during the campaign, I feel like we had a really good balance between social media and actually interacting, in person with the community. Because whether people like it or not, the fact is that social media is very prevalent in our society, and whether that's the way people engage, it really helped gain support and would bring out volunteers,
Mm.
not only from our ward, but from other wards as well, who, who associated with the message from the campaign, right? Who really felt a connection with what we were running on. And so that would allow us to gain support, and volunteers who would come out and come and help us connect with the community. But obviously being out there in the community is a big part of it as well. And, mentioning like groups like you mentioned, Next Door was one of them,
Next door,
right?
that's what I
And
was
I didn't
thinking.
even know there was conversations going on in these little groups. And someone's telling me like, hey, Next Door, have you been on? I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, Next Door. Like there's all kinds of people chatting about like the race and who's what and blah, blah. And I was like, oh,
Whoa.
wow. So those conversations happen on those apps and those neighborhood groups. So you're right. It's important to be involved, but to have a good balance is difficult, and you really have to learn where your community stands on, whether they're mostly Facebook, whether they're mostly Instagram, whether they're on those apps like Nextdoor, knowing about it, being interacting with them, and again having that good balance where you're not mostly focused on one more than the other can be difficult, but it can make a difference.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. So, well, that's good. I mean, you're already making the right moves by coming on a certain online streaming show to talk about politics. So, but yeah, because that's my goal. Is to help more people get involved in local politics and just be more informed because I feel like a lot of people, we focus on national politics and then we see how things are not exactly how they seem, right? And then people are like surprised that, oh my gosh, I can't believe party politics are this, this crazy now. And it's like, well, it kind of developed over the years, but I guess because things were good, or you just there's a term, it's called being rationally ignorant, right? That sounds so weird, but rationally ignorant voters are people who just have too much going on in their lives, rightfully so. And they're just like, I don't need to focus on politics. I'm going to make the rational decision to ignore politics and just focus on my life. And, I think there was a time, uh, or maybe there is for some people, they can still do that, right? They can still be able to not have to keep up with politics because it's not affecting their lives on a day-to-day basis. Like, you mentioned the ICE raids, right? That was something I think the entirety of California was surprised by, but I mean, it was unprecedented really nationally too. But yeah, it's like it's like we or at least for myself, I found out that, yeah, I need to really know my neighbors. I need my neighbors to know me, and I want them to know that they can depend on me and vice versa, right? And I don't know if that's always been a thing, especially well, I mean, I live in Rancho Cucamonga, so I don't really, neighbors are kind of, we don't really talk to each other that much. But I would imagine, other places they do. And so, yeah, just having that connection is really, really important. And, I'm glad to see that that's going to be one of your focuses, or that's one of the things you're going to focus on during your term.
And,
So,
and I appreciate the opportunity to come on here as well. And I love like a lot of the what you're talking about, the conversation, because you touch on a lot of different things, right? And even though, depending on the area, some neighbors may talk, some may not, right? It very much depends from one block to the next. We
yeah.
heard a lot of people like, oh, my neighbor told me you're the guy to vote for when we would go knocking on doors and stuff, right? And, because some people get information from their neighbors who they know are involved, who are very much follow local politics, right? So it
Yeah.
does matter a lot of times, because a lot of people are like, well, I don't follow politics. So what is my neighbor, what sign does my neighbor have out on their lawn? Or, who are they talking about, right? So it really does matter. The other thing is, when it comes to local politics and national politics, like you touched on earlier, there is a significant difference. Like if you look at national politics, you would think that Republicans and Democrats don't agree on anything. Everything is so divided. And I actually got quite a bit of Republican support, especially in the mobile home parks, because of my messaging on affordable housing and me advocating on behalf of the mobile home rent stabilization program. So, people can overlook what party you belong to on a local level, depending on what you're advocating for. So there's a huge difference between national politics and local politics. And people just want to know, are you honest? Are you being truthful? Does it seem like you are? And are you going to advocate for them? Are you going to be on their side? That's what they want to hear. Not that you're going to run off and do your own thing, and which is great. We all have projects that we want to try and work on, right? But are you going to try your best to do what's in the benefit of the community, right? Regardless of who lives there. So there's a huge difference between the two. And I know that people get worn out on national politics. They're like, I can't take much more. I need to unplug. When local politics is very different, and I know people feel like, wow, it's not going to affect me, but whether your roads get paved, whether you get sidewalks, whether they get fixed, whether there's lighting, whether your parks, depending on the programs they get, what events they have there, whether people acknowledge it or not, it does affect you on a daily basis, but you may not think it does, but it very much does. So it's important for as many people to get involved in local politics, more than I think national politics, to really get out there and be informed and try to vote and participate.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah, I don't know. That's media. I think has a big hand in it. We had a lot of cutting, or just the entirety of local journalism kind of being disappeared, and then just yeah, all we really have is the national politics or national coverage of politics. Sometimes they would cover the local levels, but only when there was like extreme scandals or something, so but yeah, so anyways,
Yeah, I'm sorry. Before
go
you
ahead.
move on, I do want to recognize something. It's not only I see more younger voters getting involved in local politics, but I also see more independent media with younger people getting involved in that too. For example, like your channel, right? Um, you're not like a 50, 60-year-old person, which isn't a bad thing,
Yeah.
right? But
No,
it's
yeah.
it's great to see like people in their 20s and 30s going out there and wanting to report on stuff. And so in a non-biased way, there's a lot of independent media starting to emerge, and I really, really like that because it gives candidates who may not have ever been given the opportunity to express what their messaging is, that opportunity because it's an independent outlet who's not biased one way or the other. So that is something that I feel like is emerging from what's going on a national level, and I think it's great.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. I feel like that was a little bit of praise for me, so I appreciate that. Because yeah, I mean, it's hard, and I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm completely unbiased. I don't, I mean, even yourself, you're supposed to be a nonpartisan, right? Or not have any party affiliation, right? As
No,
a
it's we when we're on the ballot, it doesn't show what party we're affiliated with.
okay.
But I can very much acknowledge that when we were out there knocking on doors, there would be a lot of people who the first thing they asked you is, what party are you with? Regardless of it being nonpartisan and not showing your party affiliation on the ballot, a lot of people wouldn't even hear the rest of what you had to say until they heard what party you were with because of what's going on nationally. And there would be a lot of people who would still hear you out, okay, well, let's hear what you have to say. Convince me, right? Sell yourself to me.
Heck yeah.
And so, at least they would give you the opportunity. But there was quite a few individuals who, you would knock on their doors and like, depending on what party you were with, they didn't want to hear it. But there was a lot of open-minded individuals who really gave you the opportunity to talk to them and, let them know like, hey, this is what I'm about. This is what my plans are. And, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean that it's hard to discredit or write off someone when they're like standing right in front of you, right? And like I'll use myself for an example. I'll be like, oh yeah, I'm a registered Democrat, and if someone writes me off because I'm a registered Democrat, then okay, but I think it's a lot harder, or it's easier to do that like online, right? To go on and say things about Democrats or Republicans, or because this person's affiliated with that party. But like when it comes down to it, face to face, it's like, well, the reason you don't support this party over the other is like this very singular issue that isn't important in local city politics, so uh here give the person a chance. They're there's like yourself, I'm sure you have a lot of it sounds like you're more left leaning, right?
Mhm.
But that's great that is that like maybe more conservative people were open to hearing from you. I heard the similar sentiments from her name is Tessa Lynn Hodge. She's running against Jay Obernolte in California congressional district. I forget 23, I think. And
Mm.
it's like it's a historically conservative area, but her herself as a Democrat was getting positive reactions from people who would have written her off as conservatives, right? And so I think that's really great. That's gonna probably help fix some of that damage that was done at the national level, I guess, that really made people sour about the D or the R, right? And so that's great. I want more of that.
There are, yeah. Then there are. It's so complex because, you know, again, here's where the national and the local very much differ, right? On the national, it seems very black and white, like, Republican, Democrat, either you're for or against, and that's it. On a local level, it very much varies on not only if you consider yourself a conservative or progressive or left leaning, right leaning. Um, it's the demographics of what your district is made up of, right? In the more working families area, where it was people in blue collar areas, for the most part, they tended to be a little bit more progressive, and they very much lean towards Democrat. And in the higher income areas, even though they were Democrat, they didn't necessarily have the same issues that some of the lower income areas were challenged with, right? So they were like, nah, I don't know, right? And then
Mm.
you would have the conservatives who, you know, they knew you were a Democrat, but they were like, hey, you know, what's going on with immigration is ridiculous. I think the
Mm.
president has gone too far, and I want someone who's more balanced and understands, like, hey, we live in a very diverse community. And it, I'm sorry, it was very inspiring to see people, break from what people think their traditional parties are and say, "Hey, I think this has gone too far, and that's not who I am. It doesn't matter what party I belong to. This has gone too far, and I want somebody who understands that, right?" And you know, it was very clear, and I'm pretty sure you've seen on my social media that I was against what ICE is doing, and and there were people who would mention, well, maybe you're running for office, maybe that's a little too extreme. It's who I
Wow.
am, and if you're going to vote for me, you have to understand that that's what I stand for, and that's my community. And if you don't vote for me, then that's your choice as well. But I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not to get votes. And I think whether people agree with you or disagree with you, they appreciate the honesty of you being straightforward about where you stand on certain issues a lot of times.
Yeah, that's for sure. Authenticity and being genuine is a big thing that I'm pushing right now, especially in the age of AI. We have
Mhm.
to let our humanity guide us, and that's very beautiful. That I mean, I don't want to assume just because you're Latino looking that you would be in support of the Latino community and all of that, but yeah, it really is something that affected all of our communities, and that's good that you're taking that stance and not afraid to share that stance, because yeah, I guess people wouldn't vote for you because there are some people that do like that's happening, as weird as that is to say. But I don't think at the end of the day, if you stick to it, you stick to whatever decision you make and you stand by it, that's a lot more admirable than flip-flopping on something, or I don't know. um I
Yeah,
know. Oh, go ahead.
no, sorry, go ahead. It's just that when you're campaigning and you have these forums, again, it's not a big chunk of the community that goes out to these forums all the time. It's mostly people who are really involved in politics. Sometimes it can be, but when you see someone who's a candidate and they don't want to answer a question straightforward, you can see the crowd, like they let them have it, like they're like, answer the question. I don't care where you stand on it. Well, they do care, but they want to know yes or no. Are you for something or against something, right? At least that way I know where you stand on these issues. And one issue may outweigh the others, right? But when you would see people kind of flip flop or try to, like, skirt away from the issue, people would be like, no, 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 we want to hear where you stand on something. And so it does make a huge difference. I feel like, especially more now, because of what's going on nationally, I feel like more people want to be more informed.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So I know I scheduled the interview. We just have a couple minutes left, but if you're available to continue talking, I would love to. We didn't really talk about your plans and vision for the future of Ward 6. If you have time, we could go over a little bit, or if you want to,
Oh,
wrap
that'd
it
be
up.
great.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I had no idea how long this was going to be, so I tried to put at least an hour away for the interview, and I appreciate your time. So, um, you know, the previous council member was very responsive to the community, their needs. Um, I plan to be as well. That's something that's very important to me because, again, I feel like this community, even though it's not a small town and not every portion of it is connected, word does get around. And if people don't see you out there, if you're not involved, word will start to get around. Hey, I've never seen this person, or this person hasn't really been involved in much. I haven't heard from this person, right? Um, right now my assistants haven't come on, so I'm like a one-man army, and I'm I'm trying to like be as responsive to people as possible. But people want to meet and get to know you, but that's one of my plans, is to still try to keep that responsiveness to the community. The other one is, a lot of the focus has been on the downtown area, with the Chichari Museum,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
the Riverside Museum. A lot of the events that go on tend to be focused in the downtown area, and that's great. I'm not faulting them for any of that. I understand. I just want some of that love for this community, and to try and bring more cultural events that represent the diversity of this community here in Ward 6. Not only just to represent that diversity, but to also support a lot of the local businesses in the area, right? These are challenging times with the economy. I know a lot of local business owners and families who are struggling right now. And if I feel like if we host and bring in more foot traffic to this area, we can help support some of the local businesses. So, but also just bring a little bit more vibrance to the area with some of these cultural events. Uh, I've been a member of Latino Network and LULAC, so I intend to partner with them to bring more cultural events, which is something Latino Network has been focused on. But health fairs and things like that with LULAC, where a lot of our low-income residents in this area would benefit from, because they tend to bring in like dentists and eye doctors and things like that for individuals who may have who struggle with insurance and getting out to some doctors. um, so but also establishing that relationship with the groups and organizations that already have local events going on here, continuing on those events, those programs, supporting them, but creating some new programs that would benefit the community, and especially since in the low income areas of my ward. Um, the homelessness crisis is a huge challenge in this area. The Magnolia Corridor is something that has become an issue to many of the residents in this area, right? But with my team, we plan to approach that pretty consistently with trying to get as many of those individuals off the street through some of the programs that are available here in Riverside, but also looking at different opportunities over my time on council to try and bring in more affordable housing. Maybe different uh, options for unhoused individuals to uh, take advantage of, so that they can start to look at other opportunities to get off the street, right? Some of the services that are available. I know that when you're on the street, it can be very traumatic for someone to lose their home, lose their vehicle. I can't even imagine what that must feel like. And, many of them, turn to substance abuse or struggle with mental health challenges as a result. And because depression and other things set in, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yeah.
And if you're on the street and you are presented with the options, well, we can get you help with mental health or your substance abuse challenges, but if you're still on the street, that's not going to change.
Yeah.
And we as a society need to understand that, in order for people to address those mental health challenges, for one, they need a safe place to stay. It doesn't matter what it looks like. People are under this impression like, oh, we want to give them a free house or, a free apartment. And that's not
Yeah.
the case,
Yeah.
right? It's just, a somewhere off the street where they can feel safe and secure, so that they can feel like, okay, now I can start to address these mental health challenges or the substance abuse, so that there's that clear path as to how I'm going to get off the street. This is one of the things that we had to often do when campaigning, was trying to educate people about homelessness and the different alternatives, and trying to, there was a lot of people who were like, I don't want, someone who's just gonna have the police go after them all the time, because that's not gonna solve anything. I understand. I work with the homeless. I know what they go through, right? And obviously there were those individuals who were like, just get them off the street. I don't care how it happens, right? And
Yeah.
and having people understand like, hey, this is a complex issue. There's different levels of homelessness with people living out of their vehicles. So, without taking too much of your time, just trying to approach the unhoused issue in our area with empathy, but at the same time, making sure that our local residents stay safe, right?
Yeah.
And that we, look forward to try and address this issue as much as possible to, support our local businesses because they struggle with this as well. There's
Yeah.
individuals, unfortunately, using substances right in front of their business. There's
Yeah.
people with severe mental health challenges hanging out in front of their doors and scaring off customers. And so you have to understand the complexity of this and all the different challenges that come along with it. And so, understanding all the different programs that are available, being consistent, I think is something that will help us address that challenge. Affordable housing is obviously something that I campaigned on, looking at different alternatives to developers. How can we bring more affordable housing to our area? Because when we would be talking to individuals who are like, "Hey, I have a 20 or 30-year old who can't leave the house because it's so expensive." They
Yeah.
have a job and they make decent money, but it's just too expensive. And they're like, not to be mean, but I thought I'd be living the single life by now, It's like,
No, that's my parents. I'm living at home with my parents and I'm 30 years old. But
you
yeah,
know,
it's
it for a
hard. It's
lot,
expensive.
it, for a lot of families, for a lot of families, if they didn't have a two-income household or more in some cases, they just wouldn't be able to make it. Rent in apartments is ridiculous, right? There's people paying between 25 to 3,500 a month, and we're one of those families, right?
Wow.
We pay over $3,000 a month in rent. So
Wow.
yeah, and
That's a lot.
when you look at the market rate and what's available, you're like, wow, how if you're making minimum wage or even a little bit above that, how do you afford that? And the reality is that you can't because then you need a vehicle to get to work, you need some way to get to work, you still have bills to pay, your insurance, your vehicle needs maintenance. There's just so many moving parts to, being an adult and living, and for some people it can be challenging. And, I know that there's individuals who are like, well, they just all need to like pull themselves up by their bootstraps and get out there. I have this little saying for people is like if everyone wanted to be the CEO, there would be none, right? You need workers who help, keep your business going, who are the backbone of what helps your business succeed. And I don't think that by putting people down and like, wow, you're a waitress or you're a fast food worker, that doesn't get us anywhere, right? And understanding these complexities and trying to bring in more affordable housing to the area would not only help those individuals be more independent, but also put more money in the pockets of people to spend on local businesses in
Oh
the
my God,
area because
yes. Yes.
that's one thing that a lot of our businesses, sometimes some of them do, some of them don't realize like, hey, the more expensive housing gets, the more expensive everything gets, that's less money that people are going to go out and spend in the area, right? And as a result, we see that with some of our local businesses. So it's something that's very vital to our area. I think it's important, and I'm going to work, diligently to try and bring that to our community. But also just again, being responsive to the community, addressing the housing, the unhoused area, affordable housing, but um, embracing the diversity of this community and bringing more events to the area that help our local businesses and families prosper because the more businesses that come in that usually tends to be more job opportunities for the residents. So it's a challenge, and it's something that takes time, but it's something I'm going to be focused on during my time.
That's very commendable. I respect that. I think a lot of people get confused with the business versus small business thing, and it's like I don't really know how to explain it to people other than like small family business, and that's what I would think is majority of what's in your ward is just people trying to maybe supplement their income by starting a side business, or I mean, that's what I'm trying to do, like my wife, she sells stickers and does art on the side, right? And that kind of supplements a little bit of our income. It's not a full-time job, but it's still something. And but small business, and I love seeing people who either have skills in baking or cooking, like I like tamale vendors. I love them. I will always stop for them if I could. But yeah, like those types of things. It will really and I'm not an economics person by any means. It'll really like, pass the dollars around the community, and
Right.
that's what we need.
And I'm no economic expert either, right? But I'm a customer. When I go, I know what I want, I know what I buy, I know what I spend my money on. I know what I have to budget to be able to spend in the local community, right? And I think that um, there's this misunderstanding that I know that a lot of the business community supported the individuals running against, right? And they're like, oh my God, they're left leaning, they're progressive, they're gonna want to like destroy all the businesses in the area. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, one of my favorite restaurants in the area that is very traditional Mexican food for me and my family is Milingo Patzingan, right? It's a local
Ooh.
business here in the area. I want to see them succeed. I want to see them, do well in the community, along with so many other businesses here in our ward that, are owned by families, that are run by families. And I just really want to see them succeed, grow. That means more jobs for the local area. It means more tax dollars for our city so that we can do more. It just makes sense, right? Obviously when it comes to bigger businesses, that's a different story, right?
Yeah.
But I know there's a new company that purchased Castle Park, and they want to
Mm.
revitalize it and make it new again. I'm like, please, I want to see that, right? I took my kids there when they were young, and we have so many fond memories there, and I hate to see it kind of like age and not get the love it needs, right? Because it's something that can really bring people together, right?
Yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't realize is, when we go to these local restaurants, when we go to like Castle Park, the Tyler Mall, you create these memories with your family that really bring the community together, and that's what's important.
Yeah, yeah. That if we have time, that reminds me of there used to be this place called, I think it was Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom. It was like a
Hmm.
water park, right? It was in
Yes.
Redlands, and I never got to go as a kid. I desperately wanted to go, but like I went to places like Scandia and stuff. Scandia is great. But like Pharaoh's Lost Kingdom, I always wanted to go there and never got a chance. And then by the time I actually saw it in person, I was working at the San Bernardino County Museum, which is just around the corner. And it was completely just like a wreck. It was just looked like a bunch of like empty like fishbowl, I mean like pools and stuff. And then
Exactly what you're talking about.
and then I come to find out, I went by just last week to visit some of my old coworkers there. And I saw that the entire lot of whatever it was, it's a warehouse now. And I'm like,
Hmm.
what the heck? And here's the kicker. The warehouse isn't even for anything. It's up for lease, right? So I'm like, man, this had such good memories. I mean, I don't know if they were ever going to bring back the water park, but it's things like that. That's like it's sad that now it's just a ginormous warehouse. So, but
Yeah.
So before I let you go, any last things that you want to bring attention to, or shout outs, or the mic is yours for the next 5 minutes.
For the next 5 minutes.
Or
So,
however long.
you wouldn't tell by this interview, but usually I'm a person of few words. But what is important to me is I want to thank the community, um, and all the supporters who came out from all different areas of Riverside to help this campaign get the word out. It couldn't have happened without so many different groups, organizations, and community members who really felt a connection to what this campaign was running on. It's important for me to try my very best to keep those promises that I made during the campaign. Um, you know, we can do our best, and try to make sure that we're committed to that message that we talked about when we were running, right? It's so important. That's what fuels a lot of the people who come out to knock on doors for you. It couldn't have happened without all those people. And I wish I could acknowledge every single person who helped out, but I don't know, you'd have the time. But most im- most importantly is, the local businesses who did support us, Milindo Apatzingán, Chella's Family Cuts, the Fiesta Pizza, they supported this campaign because they believed in it. Organizations like, um, and then the environmental justice voters, Riverside Young Democrats, IE voters. There's so many groups and organizations that were a big part of helping us win this. And I say us because this isn't about me. This isn't about one person. I feel like this is a community win, right? Like one of my friends said, like this turned into a movement. And when they had the Sarah swearing in ceremony, I was surprised to see how many people came out, and it was so awesome. And that's what it felt like, because obviously there are so many things that are important to the community of Riverside and to our area as well. And I want everyone to understand that I'm committed, and I'm going to do my very best to try and keep those promises and do as much as I can to make a positive impact on our community. So thank you.
That's sweet. I really appreciate it. To me, that sounds so genuine. And if I lived in your ward, you would have had my vote as well.
Thank you.
But thank you so much for joining me, Luis Hernandez. Is a pleasure. How long is your term on city council? Is it 4 years? 2 years?
4 years.
4 years. All right. I look forward to seeing you in action over the next 4 years. And if you're willing, I'd love to have you back on the stream anytime to talk about whatever. I had a great conversation with you today, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come on the stream and, have a conversation with me. I really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure, and most definitely. Thank you.
All right, I'll let you go now. Have a good rest of your Thursday afternoon and a good weekend. Thank you again, everyone. Luis Hernandez, Riverside City Council, Ward 6. All right, pleasure. See you later. Bye. All right. Heck yeah. That was a great conversation. I was not expecting, as my abuela always says, I was not expecting to have such a good time. I really did not know anything about Luis Hernandez, just saw him on Instagram, shot him a message, and, I'm glad we finally got that conversation. It was great. I should have said while he was still on. But when he was thanking everyone and saying it's the election's not about me. That reminds me of Bernie Sanders when he would say, or his slogan, "Not me, us." The election is about us, and I can super appreciate that. That was beautiful, actually. So yeah, he's already out there on the job. You heard him. He's a one-man operation so far, trying to get it all. Look at I love how Mayor Lock Dawson is like just total eyes for him. I mean, not eyes in a bad way or it's just like she's like this is the guy. Yeah, so again, big shout out to Luis Hernandez. What a good guy. What a good person. So like I said, look forward to seeing him in the future. All right. So let's take a quick break. And then we will get back to more news. But here, let's steal some content from Hassanabi Piker. Here we go. Let's watch this. I'm gonna go make myself some food real quick, use the restroom. But I will be right back. Like I said, stealing content from Hassan. And yeah. Oh, I need to reconnect the audio.
All right, we'll start off with some fun stuff. Argentina to take on Spain.
I will be
In your
right
latest tweet,
back.
you
Chuck.
have a small typo for. Wow, did I miss another word? I always do this. My ADHD makes this so goddamn difficult. Oh wait, disavow. Okay, I fixed it. Yes, we're gonna talk about Stephen Miller. All the biggest villains got together to do this shit. It sucks. I miss your Liberty Mutual suit. Which one is that? Is that the green one? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Argentina will take on Spain in the World Cup final after late comeback against England. It's unfortunately not coming home for the British in the chat. Football is not coming home. 60 years of hurt has turned into 64 years of hurt at the very least. Let's take a look.
Showdown is set, and Argentina will face Spain after a stunning late comeback against England, led by captain Lionel Messi. Argentina scored twice in just 7 minutes to pull off the win 2-1. Nicole Valdez was there for it all and joins us from Atlanta. Nicole, good morning.
Good morning. Argentina and England, one of international soccer's fiercest rivalries, closed out the semifinals with a match fueled by decades of clashes on and off the pitch. But in the end, defending champion Argentina will be moving on to the final.
From the opening whistle, the tension between Argentina and England boiled over, and for more than 100 minutes, it didn't let up. Leading by 1 and showing incredible defense late into the match, it looked like England had secured its spot in the final until...
I'll keep it at $150. There is one play from Lionel Messi that is actually kind of insane, where he just jukes out like 4 people trying to get after him until he gets fouled. And it is one of the most insane things I've ever seen in slow motion, where it just like doesn't make sense if you watch it. If you watch it in real time, you're like, how is he seeing this? Like, how does he see this lane? How does he open his own lanes? It doesn't make any sense. How is he dribbling like this? It is pretty crazy. But then also, then you remember it's Lionel Messi, and then, you're like, it's fine. It's still, who cares?
Argentina came roaring back, scoring twice in the closing minutes.
And when you're so close, when you're 10 plus minutes away and
Yeah, Donald Trump's favorite golf partner. What is this? Messi was using his dog to practice his cheating move.
Able to slow Messi up.
This
Messi
is what
around
I'm
3
talking
England
about.
players still on the ball.
Bro, you can't appreciate this in real time until you watch it in slow motion, and you're like, this is the most insane thing, dude.
Lionel Messi fouled his...
Like, you have to watch it in slow motion. You have to watch it. Also, I'm scared. I'm scared that it's gonna... Does FIFA stand for fixed it for Argentina? Yes. I told you already. I told you already. Okay? It's Argentina. It's literally, it's Argentina. It's also, not only is it Argentina, but it's also, England was not only playing against Lionel Messi, playing against the Argentinian team, they were playing against Infantino. Look at this, look at this. it's pretty crazy. Anyway, Lamine Yamal waved the Palestinian flag, so there's that. No, of course. No, the people's team on this in the finals is going to be Spain for sure. Yes, for sure. 18 years ago or however many years ago, Messi washed this Lamine Yamal as a baby, and now he's going to wash Messi. Yeah, this is one of the craziest stories of all time, honestly. I mean, this actually is the Messi baby Yamal photo is the craziest in human history. It's the prophecy.
Messi photo is the craziest photo in human history. I don't know how it will ever be beaten. I don't care how many times you see it over the next however many days before the World Cup final.
There's still a typo in your tweet. It's an anti-Semite instead of and anti-Semite. Your tweets are always full of typos. You need to proofread your tweets. Okay, you take a 24-hour off. Thank you for the warning, but I will not be having you being annoying. Okay, thank you for warning me, but you're getting a day off for the second part, dumbass.
Obviously, Yamal and Messi are playing each other now in the World Cup final. Guys, this photo happened because there was a charity campaign with UNICEF. The neighborhood near Barcelona, where Barcelona plays, I'm in Barcelona in Spain. They asked all the families there, it's like, if you have a baby, you can enter into, and then if you win, you can bring your baby.
I didn't know Yubi was like that. I didn't know Yubi was into soccer like that. The clear favoritism for Argentina this whole World Cup is to stain on Messi's legacy. He put Jude Bellingham in a headlock. An Argentinian player grabbed an English player by the back of the head, and Messi was just wasting time at the end by falling onto the ball and holding onto it like it was a rugby match. And those are just some of their dirty plays.
And there'll be a photo with a Barcelona player. The Barcelona player in 2007 ended up to be Messi in the photo. And who won the raffle? Yamal. This wasn't like, oh, Yamal's the son of this other soccer. No, this was random. And in 2007, Messi was pretty good, but he was not like, oh my God, the GOAT. This is it. I don't care how many times you see it, how many times it gets brought up. This should be talked about for the rest of humanity. I can't believe it's real. It is the fakest real photo of all time. I could talk about this. The chances, some mathematician has to run the chances on this. Some mathematician. It has to be close to like -0.
It is one of the most insane random strokes of luck. Said it's some Harry Potter shit where only Yamal can take down Messi. I mean, let's be real. If it actually does end up happening, Keir Starmer hits back at Argentina after their players held a Falklands or Argentine banner. The World Cup might have not been ours, but the Falkland Islands are? No. Oh my God. Dude, I'm telling you, this is why I told you the British they're not doing all right. I feel kind of, I can't believe I'm saying this. I feel kind of bad for the British. This goes against FIFA rules, by the way. Yeah, of course. This is a real burger place in Argentina. Yes, I know exactly what this is. Yeah. The plot twist. Okay, you want to know the plot twist? I think the plot twist is it's owned by a black Argentinian dude, but I don't know if that's the case or not. But it is still the most insane thing I've ever seen. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Also, AI art, classic. Anyway, every country has that. Yeah, it's insane in every country, man. You mean one of the 0.5%? Yes, I think so. Literally. All right. Look, this is not, I'm not in the business of defending Argentina. Okay. You will never catch me doing such a thing. Let's finish this and move on.
It slips out your hands like that. Obviously the lads are devastated.
The winning goal in stoppage time set up with an assist by superstar Lionel Messi.
As always with the most dangerous players in the world, when they have the ball in the final third, they can create something, and he done that again today.
Argentina is now one win away from becoming the first men's team in more than 6 decades to win consecutive World Cups.
By the way, you can't say it's the Trump curse because, sure, Trump golfed with him, but Trump also literally hosted Lionel Messi in the White House. So it's one of those situations where both teams, both players, both top players of both teams have been around Donald Trump. I guess it doesn't hurt with Argentina. Argentina already has like bad vibes, so it didn't actually, the Trump curse didn't even impact them that much.
Fans inside and outside Atlanta Stadium exploded in celebration.
What did it feel like to be inside and watch Argentina win this match?
This is an incredible match and very emotional.
Sunday will mark the first ever World Cup final between Argentina and Spain, and it's a battle of the generations, with 39-year-old Lionel Messi going head-to-head with Spain.
Hassan, do you actually think FIFA is aiding Argentina? Did you watch the matches? I just like to slander. I just like to make jokes. Yeah, I saw this. Is so funny. We'll cover this in a second. The comparison: top performing player in East Staff for every World Semi-Cup finalist. That's insane. That's insane. But it also kind of makes sense. I mean, objectively, like I guess these are more stacked, right? LeBron in 2018. Okay. All right, let's move on.
Spain's 19-year-old star Lamine Yamal.
Oh, the restaurant owners are not black. So I got fake news. This is the owner. He's not black, and it says it bothers him that they prohibit him from using. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. All right. Well, that makes a lot more sense. I thought it was one of like the 8 black people. Someone duped me. I mean, it'd still be fucking insane regardless. But 2017 iDubbbz ass opinions. I mean, it's dude. Argentina moment. Argentina moment. Argentina moment. I'm not. Look, let's just move on from the story, please.
Could be Messi's final World Cup match, giving the player many consider the greatest of all time one more chance to add another World Cup trophy to his legendary career.
And in a summer of dramatic finishes, historic moments, and record-breaking, Sunday's showdown is expected to be no exception, with a crowd anticipated of more than 80,000 people in New Jersey to watch Argentina take on Spain.
Wow. Wow.
It is going down. Oh, thank you.
Defending champion Argentina defeated England 2-1 at the World Cup semi-final on Wednesday. It was the latest chapter in a long-running feud.
Whole country watching the game because none of them have jobs. Okay, that's ruthless. Okay, now we're just being mean to every Argentinian person for things that are completely outside of their power. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's not their fault. You know what I mean?
Feud that has transcended the pitch to encompass British control over the disputed Falkland Islands, which Argentina calls the Malvinas, claiming them as its sovereign territory. That feud spilled onto the pitch on Wednesday, when during celebrations fans held a banner with the words Las Malvinas son Argentinas, or the Falkland Islands are Argentine. The same banner was held by Argentina's Giovanni Lo Celso during celebrations. The British government has urged governing body FIFA to investigate Argentina's soccer team over the banner. The team could face disciplinary action from FIFA for violating rules banning political messaging on the field. The feud between Argentina and England goes back to 1982, when Argentina invaded the Falkland Islands, triggering a 2-month war. The conflict, which was won by Britain, saw the death of 255 British servicemen, 3 islanders, and 649 Argentines, many of them young conscripts under-resourced and outgunned by the British Army. It has also loomed large in Argentine soccer since one of history's greatest players, Diego Maradona, led Argentina to victory over England in an epic 1986 World Cup quarter-final, with his notorious Hand of God goal, the memory of which still leaves many British fans wincing.
We talked about...
Oh, this is pretty crazy. Mamdani watched the World Cup semifinals with Rikers Island prisoners, and people got really mad about it because they're just fucking awful human beings in general. This is a very cool thing that Mamdani's doing, you know, humanizing people that are oftentimes the most overlooked individuals in society.
66, you have 1 star rule, you can shoot it there.
It's a phenomenal thing. This is one of his. Oh man, this is unironically one of his best qualities. Straight up. Please come to Florida for Oliver Larkin rally. Thanks. Okay, guys, I don't know when that's happening, but that's, you know.
I hope that this shares
with people who are incarcerated here on Rikers that they too are a part of New York City. The World Cup has been a magical moment for the entire city. These are New Yorkers, and they will be New Yorkers when they get out of Rikers. They're New Yorkers today, and I wanted to make sure that we can celebrate this moment together.
Okay, chat. Just finishing the rest of my dinner. I'll be right back.
Of course, criminals would be in favor of that other criminal, Lionel Messi. Wow, that took me 35
I forgot to say that the cats were being super annoying during the interview, so I'm taking care of them right now.
Get our drinks on and stuff like that. That's okay though. We got to eat on, so that was good though. You know what I'm saying? So we can stop eating food that we don't really get and you know what I'm saying? Like with me, I've been locked up 21 months, so it's been a long time since I had real food like that.
That's so sad.
These two teams are rivals for decades, and can we get any better than this?
Give him life. Okay, chill.
President Trump is set to give a prime.
Hey, folks. From Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Woodstock, Georgia, and Orange, California, and Minnesota hazy. Yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Bremerton, Washington, famous place. Newburgh, Indiana. I know Newburgh, Indiana. Why do I know Newburgh, Indiana? I don't remember. Fort Myers, Florida, Memphis, Tennessee, which, by the way, has the most beautiful buildings in the country. Charleston, South Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, Central Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, London. I used to live in London. I lived in London for a year. Waltham, Massachusetts, City of Clocks. Okay, you guys like rabbit holes? While we're waiting for Facebook, let me tell you a rabbit hole about clocks and why Waltham is a city of clocks. So if you think about the way humans interact with lightness and darkness, until you get the rise of a place where you have to be there at certain times, people tell time with a number of different ways and a number of different words. Think of all the words we have for the time between the sun being up and the sun being down. For example, we have evening, we have dusk, we have, afternoon, we have darkening, we have, almost dark. We have all these different ways of thinking about the passage of time. And so we get this when you have a society like that, at least in the United States, which is where I work, right? Until you get the rise of industrial factories, people have a really different relationship to time than they do after the beginning of the Lowell Mills in Massachusetts. And after the time you start to get people needing to show up to work at the same time and do work at the same time and take breaks at the same time. And when they first opened the Lowell Mills, the way people know whether it's time to get up or whether it's time to go to work or whatever is by the ringing of bells. But because you suddenly need to have people responding to clocks and to time, you get the rise of the clockmaker industry in the United States, and Waltham, Massachusetts is the centerpiece of that, which is why it was a city of clocks. And you start to see in the 1830s and the 1840s the rise of the use of timepieces, as opposed to a lot of people used to tell time by cutting a little groove in their windowsills, for example. And when the light hit at that point, it was about such and such a time, or with sundials, for example, or just simply by knowing what the landscape looked like at certain times, and it changed during the course of the year. But one of the things that I found really interesting about that, two things really. One is that once you start to move gainful employment outside the home into a factory so that people get paid, a paycheck for the time they put in at work, once you get that, you start to denigrate the work that's done inside the home. So by the time you get to the 20th century, for example, you get to hear people start saying to people who work inside the home, "Do you work?" And as anybody who's ever taken care of a home and children knows, it's extraordinarily hard work. But in the United States, we tended to see as work things that operated according to the time on a clock. There's your little rabbit hole for today. You also get the whole idea that we give watches to people as gifts when they retire from something. That the fact you get a pocket watch came from the fact that the most efficient and the best timepieces in the second half of the 19th century were those that were handled by railroad conductors, because they had to know really clearly what time it was so they didn't get on the track at the wrong time and have a head-on collision with another train. And after 1883, when we get time zones in the United States, the timepieces carried by train conductors were the most accurate so that they could make sure that they were in the right place at the right time and you weren't going to have a collision. And if you had been with the railroad for a long time, they let you keep your timepiece when you retired. And that became a thing to give somebody a timepiece and when they retired. And that's how you get the idea that you have a timepiece. And I just gave you this whole thing. It has taken me almost 5 minutes, and Facebook is not here. We've been having trouble projecting onto Facebook. Oh, is that right? I'm not seeing them though. They're here? Well, you're saying they're here. Okay. But they're not showing up on my screen at all. You're seeing the numbers. Okay. Oh, there's 2 screens. All right. I have the world's best administrator back there. Okay. So she now knows everything about timepieces, and so do you. And I'm going to trust that Facebook is here. Yeah. Armchair says Facebook is here. All right. Do you really need to know anything else now that you know about clocks and timepieces and what the difference that made? If you've ever had somebody ask you, do you work? Which used to make me bonkers when I was home with children. Anyway, there are some things in the news today that you would like me to talk about, and they're kind of no-brainers. But let me give you a big picture first. As I said, have been saying for months, the summer was going to be bad. And what I meant by that, I didn't know the specifics of what I meant. You know, a lot of people are like, what do you mean? What's he going to do? I didn't know what he was going to do. But I was aware that his power was slipping and his mental acuity was slipping. And that many of the things, he was able to coast for about a year on things that had gone well in the Biden administration, and that those things were going to fall apart. And that's where we are right now. You are watching things fall apart around the country. You are watching his popularity plummet. You are watching him madly try to stay in power. And what we are getting from that is extraordinary instability in the United States of America and around the world. And how this is going to come out, I have no idea. I will reinforce at the end of this that our behavior will have a lot to do with how it comes out. Let me start with the really big elephant in the room, and that is Trump's war on Iran. And I know that sometimes it seems like it's a little bit on the back burner because there are many other things going on. But the reason I'm starting with that is because in Iran especially, Trump's projection of power, this idea that I can do whatever I want to do and people are going to kowtow to me, has come smack up against reality. And the truth is, he doesn't have a way out of Iran. That he has taken a situation that was not great. Iran was not our friend, right? The Iranians, some of them are, but Iran, the regime in Iran was not the friend of the United States and hasn't been for a very long time, and has been a bit of a pariah in the Middle East, more than a bit of has been a pariah in the Middle East. Iran was a problem for a lot of people, but it's been a problem for a while. And Trump decided, especially after his attack in January on Venezuela, that was quick and in his terms successful, he thought he could do the same thing in Iran. So he, and alongside Israel, which was backed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the two of them launched strikes on Iran on February 28th. Now, when they did that, they basically kicked a hornet's nest because by attacking the way they did, they prompted the leadership of Iran, after first killing a bunch of the leaders of Iran, to seize the Strait of Hormuz, through which about 25% of the world's seaborne oil traveled and about 30% of the world's seaborne fertilizer traveled. And as soon as that happened, Trump and his advisors keep insisting that they're doing such damage on Iran that they have won that war, and they have indeed inflicted a ton of damage on Iran. But Iran is maintaining control of the Strait of Hormuz, and so long as they are able to strangle the oil and the fertilizer that used to go through the Strait of Hormuz, they're strangling the global economy. And that is translating in the United States to higher gas prices, higher prices, especially of food. But anything that you see in a store in the United States of America, unless it is a local store, and shout out to our local stores here, unless it is a local store, it travels by truck. And trucks run on diesel, and diesel has gotten incredibly expensive, and those prices are going to be passed on to the consumer. Now, those prices have gone up, and that's badly hurt Trump. And this is one of the reasons he signed that memorandum of understanding back on June 17th, a very hastily thrown together deal that it appears he didn't quite understand, because people who looked at it at the time looked at it and said, gee, it sure looks like you're saying Iran gets control of the Strait of Hormuz. Well, Iran interpreted it that way. Iran has said to ships that wants to the ownership of the ships that want to transit the Strait of Hormuz, that they're going, there's free passage for 60 days, theoretically, under that memorandum of understanding. But after that, they're going to have to pay fees. This is an attack on the concept of the freedom of the seas, which the United States has been a big supporter of since 1941. It has been what has created this world trade that has enabled the costs of things to go significantly down relatively to the people's income after World War II, and that has created so many prosperous countries in the globe since World War II. And Iran's simply saying, no, it's our strait. Now, Trump is trying desperately to get back to where he was on February 27th. And remember, that itself was a step down from where we had been under the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, which was hammered out in 2015 under the Obama administration, but was hammered out by a number of different countries, including China and France and Germany and the United Kingdom and the United States of America. They had hammered out this deal with Iran that stopped its enrichment of uranium for nuclear weapons capabilities. And Trump tore that up in 2018. And about a year later, Iran again began to enrich uranium. So what he has done is he kicked this hornet's nest, and there appears really to be no way out that isn't going to involve really smart minds over a really long time. I think the JCPOA took 20 months to negotiate. And right now, Trump's got nobody over there negotiating except his son-in-law and his special envoy to the Middle East, who's a business partner. Neither one of them have any training in negotiations. So here he is with Iran hanging out there. But the reason that this is becoming an even bigger deal right now is twofold. First, one of the ways that the United States kept oil prices as low as they did, even though they were going up, they could have gone up much more, is that the government had been releasing petroleum from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, which is a reserve that we've had around since, I think it's the early 1980s. I don't remember. It was after the last oil crisis, that is supposed to provide a buffer in case there are these moments when you get a pinch in oil, or where for some reason or another, you need to have get more oil on the market. And first, that reserve was low because Biden had used some of it and Trump never replaced it. And then he's been releasing it. It is now at the lowest level since 1983. And the people who are watching oil right now are saying, our reserves are running out. And when they do, There's nothing we can do to get those back. That's not, I mean, the oil prices are going to skyrocket. And you occasionally hear people from the administration saying, well, we produce so much oil, it's not a problem. Except once again, remember the oil that the United States produces, and indeed we're an exporter of oil, but the oil that we produce is not the kind we use. So that our refineries can't handle that oil. So
Okay,
we
we're back,
operate in the
everyone. We
same
are
international
back.
markets that everybody else does. So that is a problem. But the other problem
Thank you for
is that
bearing with
Trump
me.
has been even more erratic than usual. And yesterday, I believe it was, the strikes between the US and the Iranians have been mounting for the last 5 days again. And Trump began to say yesterday morning, I think it was, I've lost track of days, so maybe it was a day or two ago, that he was going to attack power plants and bridges in Iran. Now, first of all, that's against international law. You can't go after civilian infrastructure. That's a war crime. Not always, but almost always. And in this case, it certainly sounds as if he is threatening a war crime. So aside from that, which is big enough, immediately the leaders of Iran said to their allies, I'm sorry, this seems confusing. In my mind, it's actually kind of not confusing because I think of them sort of as a group. The Iranians back Hezbollah, um, and the Houthis in Lebanon, and the people in control of Gaza. Well, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on the name. I'm sorry. Houthis in Lebanon. Anyway, you all know Hamas.
Like,
Hamas.
yeah,
There we go.
Hamas, there you go.
So they back all of those non-state actors. And what they have said to the Houthis in Yemen is if Trump even thinks about or goes after a power plant in Iran, you need to threaten another strait, there's two major straits through which oil comes out of the Middle East, and the other one is the El Mandab, the Bab El Mandab Strait, that is the opening of the Red Sea into what is eventually into the world oceans. And again, a choke point. And if that happens and they cut that oil out as well, we're really up the creek without a paddle. And so all of this is going on right now. And Trump is blustering and he's yelling. And I mean, it just doesn't seem like there's a way out other than using the skills that Trump's people don't have and that would admit he really messed this up in a really big way. Okay,
I
so
mean, that's
there's
basically
that
what
out
Marco
there, but
Rubio
then, of
said
course, we
the day
also
that
have
he
the
said Israel was going to
renewed
attack, so we had
fury
to.
over the immigration sweeps that the Trump administration has been engaging in. And I talked about that a lot on Tuesday, so I'm not going to take a lot of time with it now. But those are not popular. They never have been popular, and they are getting less popular. I do want to reiterate a theme in American history that we don't pay enough attention to, and that is whenever the government goes after a population, the people who they always say they're going after criminals, they're going after warriors, they're going after the bad guys. They always go for the low-hanging fruit. Those are going to be children, the elderly, people who are voluntarily turning themselves in. It's just easier and safer than going after the people that you tell Americans you're going after. And that's one thing always to be aware of when you look at Indigenous history, for example. When the government said it was going after the warriors, invariably they end up going for the peaceful communities and that have women and children in them because it's just easier and you don't have to worry about getting shot. So we're sort of seeing, not sort of, you are seeing that same thing here now, and people are aware of that. They're seeing that the people that are getting dragged out of their cars, for example, out of their homes, but certainly out of their cars and being shot too within a week over the last 10 days or so.
Which, oh my God,
were
can
both
I just
not the
say shout
targets
out
of the investigation.
bro,
They were
my shit is
people
not-
who were
Okay, can I just say shout out to Luis Hernandez again for saying that ICE shouldn't be in our communities the way that they are. Oh my God, and absolutely crazy that he said that people came up to him and was like, this is probably not a good idea, or, you shouldn't get political like that. What? That's crazy. Crazy.
Were appear to have been racially profiled, pulled out of their cars and shot and killed, even though at least one of them appears to have been in the United States legally. And people don't like that. They don't like to see their neighbors killed. So that's heating up as well. But there's other stuff going on. So one of the things that Americans have become used to is the idea that the government was going to try and keep some guardrails up to keep us safe. And the fact that we have this foodborne illness outbreak across the country that has sickened at this point, I believe is up to 7,000 known cases of it.
7,000
And
cases of the
because
poo-poo
the
diarrhea
CDC has
thing?
not been tracking this particular pathogen, it stopped doing so last July as part of the attempt to cut back at the US government.
Of
Now it
course.
only tracks salmonella and toxin producing E. coli, and it's no longer tracking 6 other pathogens. They're not really able to figure out what happened. And that's the sort of thing we have become accustomed to, that the government is going to be able to say, there's been a problem in our food supply. This is what you shouldn't eat. And in this case, they're simply saying, we don't know what it is. This could be a lot of things. And that is unsettling for a lot of people, especially in the summer when it appears that there is some kind of a link between fresh produce and this pathogen. And this is when a lot of us actually eat fresh produce, and that's just really unsettling not to know what's okay and what's not. This is a little bit of a rabbit hole. Every time I see advice that you should wash your hands before you handle food and after you use the bathroom, I just get the heebie-jeebies, because let me tell you right now, if you're not doing those things, whether or not there's a foodborne illness around, learn to do them, because that's just nasty, right? Wash your hands all the time. It's a good thing to do.
Heather Cox Richardson said, cleanliness is next to godliness. Remember that.
But that's not everything as well. So we have that out there. But if you've been watching the news, you're also seeing that more than 100 million Americans, about 117 million right now, are dealing with truly horrific air quality. And that air quality is because of more than 100 wildfires in Canada and many in northern Minnesota as well. And those are all regions that are burning, in part because the climate change that has changed rainfalls has really dried out places that are not accustomed to having that kind of dry weather. And we've got these raging wildfires that make it really clear that we can't continue to ignore climate change. And the Biden administration, of course, said we can deal with climate change and bring jobs. And they brought in battery factories and solar power factories. And it really seemed like we were going to be able to make that transition. And Trump, of course, is all petrochemicals and tore all that up, and has literally taken out tax dollars to pay companies not to build wind farms.
That's terrible.
And the battery factory, the Korean battery factory that was coming to the south, of course, they rounded up the Koreans that were in it, and they just said, we're out of here. This is, we can't be, it's not safe here any longer.
Terrible.
You watch that and you recognize that as of today, Detroit, Chicago, and I think it's Minneapolis are 3 of the most polluted cities on the globe right now. 3 of the 5 top polluted cities in the globe. And again, Americans are not accustomed to having that happen and having basically having the government say, good luck, But at the same time, those same changes in weather patterns that scientists, by the way, said all along were going to happen, is bringing more flooding to Texas, to the Texas hills, that same place that flooded last year and so tragically took out that children's camp. There was a river down there that rose 25 feet in 1 hour. There was so much rainfall.
25 feet in 1 hour from rain?
This destabilization of our country, which had been coming for a long time, but to have the government say, good luck with that. We're gonna this climate change is just a scam. It doesn't exist. Addressing it is a green scam. That's just obviously wrong. I mean, it just even if you're not reading scientific papers, you can look at the fact you can't breathe in Detroit right now or in Chicago right now and say we have a problem. I mean, even here Tuesday when my friend and I were out swimming, it was her birthday, by the way, not mine. The sun was red. I took a bunch of pictures of it because you could tell that here in Maine that we were seeing the haze from the fires. And there's that going on. But then you also have more stories about the reflecting pool, which Trump, of course, made the changes to without any permission, without any reviews, with nothing else. He just decided he was going to do it because he thinks of himself as, sort of an autocrat. And of course, everything went south in a hurry. It turned really poorly, really quickly. And what the administration did then was to blame vandals. And, we can all look at that and see that it was not vandals. And now that they've drained it again, there's a story in the Washington Post today where 4 different reporters, and you always kind of look for, there's certain things you look for when you're trying to look at big stories. And one of them is there are certain names you look for, but one is when you have multiple people reporting on a story, that means they've really thrown resources at it. There were 4 reporters on this particular story and 2 more people contributed to the report. They went down and they got experts to come look at the reflecting pool that Trump insists somebody slashed for 350 feet. And they're like, look, all the seams parted. And the seams parted because they weren't put together right. And the White House said, no, that's not true. It was vandals. And, maybe somebody still believes that, but oh, come on.
Oh, come on, yes.
And you're also seeing stories like the idea that Trump is building a helipad at the White House with no review. He just decided he's going to do it. And the more you see of this, and the more you see him just assuming he's going to do things and then watch it fall apart, you can see the frustration of the American people and the fact that Trump is lashing out at them. So one of the things that's happened since that reflecting pool is the Department of Justice indicted and charged a 67-year-old cyclist who came down and fortunately photographed the pool before he touched it. And he touched it and they jumped on him and said, the police jumped on him and said he had vandalized it. And he said, no, I didn't. I touched it. And they've charged him. But
That's crazy.
It's going to be it's embarrassing. The whole thing is embarrassing to watch this happen. So you have all these things going on. And at the same time, there's other structural problems with the Republican Congress right now. So there's a bunch of stuff that needs to happen in Congress. This has been the most do-nothing Congress in American history. But among other things, it needs actually to pass some measures. And one of the measures that the Pentagon insists needs to pass is it says it needs more money, that it's basically run through a lot of its munitions on Trump's war, not only in Iran, but remember, he struck a whole slew of countries before he went after Iran. And yesterday, the House Budget Committee did put forward its plan for a $95 billion supplemental spending plan. But even before it came into the House, the Republicans, I'm not even talking about the Democrats yet, the Republicans were all furious because Trump had invited all the far-right Freedom Caucus members on the Budget Committee to Camp David to talk about this, and he confiscated their phones when they were there. But he didn't ask anybody who wasn't on the Freedom Caucus, so who was on the Budget Committee. And when these other people learned about this, they were like, what are you talking about? You can't go off and walk away from those of us on the stupid committee and make a plan with the president and don't talk to us. So one of them said, I'm going to whip no's on this so that I'm going to try and get people to vote no, because you can't do this. And in addition to that, a number of the people who are not on the Budget Committee looked at this and said, you're adding another almost $100 billion to the national debt, and you haven't proposed any way to offset that. And you can't keep doing this. So that's even before you get the Democrats involved. And the Democrats were like, okay, it's about $70 billion, 73, I think it is, for this incredibly unpopular war. You're tossing $12 billion at American farmers who are in real trouble from the Trump's tariff wars, but also because the administration is really encouraging consolidation so that farmers are going bankrupt in high numbers. Small farmers are going bankrupt, but they're also losing their farms to consolidation.
Terrible. Of course.
So you're throwing money at the farmers, and then you're looking for 10 billion with a B dollars to implement the provisions of that Save America Act, the Voter Suppression Act that Trump wants, that can't pass through Congress. So he's just trying to go in through a defense authorization. And the Democrats are like, this is me talking, not them. Sorry, but we missed the news flash about hell freezing over. This is not going to happen. At the same time, in the Senate, you have the sudden death of Lindsey Graham last weekend. And by the way, it's been very odd how there were a whole bunch of obituaries and people said some nice stuff. And now it's like the man never existed, which at least in the news today, I actually did a search for him because I'm like, man, the water closed over his head fast, which I thought that was, I'm not surprised, but it does say something about legacy and what people remember. Anyway, I was a little nonplussed by that. Anyway, Lindsey Graham is a big deal. Lindsey Graham was the chair of the Judiciary Committee. So if you remember, he screamed and ranted and raved, and that's what really turned the trick for Brett Kavanaugh to get on the Supreme Court. He's the guy, Lindsey Graham is the guy who ushered through a lot of Trump's appointments to the judiciary. And he was also on the Budget Committee. And of course, that in the Senate. And of course, now that's a problem because of this budget supplemental that's going to be
what
very,
happened
very
to Lindsey
difficult to get
Graham?
through.
How did
and
he
then
die?
You also have the missing Mitch McConnell. And the fact that Mitch McConnell, or somebody released that picture of Mitch McConnell saying, I'm fine, basically, on the same day that news broke that Lindsey Graham had died unexpectedly, suddenly, suggested that the head of the Republicans in the Senate is feeling under an extreme amount of pressure because those were two of his key votes. And while the Democrats only have 47 votes, I believe, in the Senate, there are two independents as well who tend to vote with the Democrats. And that's Angus King, an independent of Maine, and Bernie Sanders, an independent of Vermont.
Hell yeah,
so
roller.
The Republicans can't afford to lose any votes in the Senate either. Now, at the same time, the Trump's popularity is plummeting. It's down there close to 30, and his handling of the economy is below. His handling of the economy is so unpopular. It's down under the level that I always said you couldn't get below in the United States. People are really, really, really unhappy about the economy. So you're looking at this sort of perfect storm at the same time that Trump is falling apart mentally, or at least so he seems to be. If you watch his speeches, if you listen to the things he says, if you even read his social media, which I've shown you how to do by going to Trump's Truths, they're unhinged. They're simply unhinged. And as they get more unhinged, people are starting to ignore him, which to somebody like Trump is arsenic, right? The idea that he is being ignored is infuriating, and he does not want that to happen. So where am I going with all this? Trump is madly trying to stuff loyalists in the administration to prop him up. And we have right now, over the course of the last 2 days, we have his attempt to add a new director of national intelligence to replace Tulsi Gabbard. That man is named
Wait,
Clayton.
Tulsi
Clayton, who
Gabbard
is
got kicked out?
currently
I
at
had
the
no
Southern
idea.
is the U.S. Attorney at the Southern District of New York. And Clayton has been slow walking the release of the Epstein files. Trump is also trying to put in at Attorney General Todd Blanche, who is now the acting Attorney General. He was the Deputy Attorney General to Pam Bondi, the Attorney General. And now I've just said the word Attorney General so many times, you're probably all glazed over. But the reason all that matters
I was
is
thinking of
Todd
Pamela
Blanche is Trump's
Joanne
former
Bondi.
criminal defense attorney. And he's the guy who went and interviewed Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey
Bro.
Epstein's associate. And after that interview, she got moved to a cushy prison that she shouldn't have been allowed to go to because of her status as a sex offender. So it sure looks like Trump is trying to stuff all the loyalists he can around him. And it's definitely worth looking at
This is
that
just like Hugo
a number of
Chavez.
those have been covering up the Epstein files. Now, remember as well, he finally had to,
Bro,
he
okay.
didn't have to pay up.
We gotta play it. We gotta play it. Okay. I don't know if Heather Cox Richardson talks about this. Let me see. I'm thinking we gotta watch the Joe Rogan, JD Vance interview. Where's the little thingy? Hold on, I got my food all over the place like a freaking gremlin. Did it still click? Ask, thank you. Does Heather talk about JD Vance on Joe Rogan? Okay, so that's a no. Thank you. All right, so then Heather does not talk about it. Let's go. Let's look it up. JRE. Ew, not Mr. Beast. Here we go.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
Drink by day, Joe Rogan podcast by night, all day.
Blood and water and gunk and shit and swamp monsters.
Oh man! So that's June 14th. So that's the president's birthday. That was my 12th wedding anniversary.
Oh wow!
And my wife. So that's the one thing. Like if somebody runs in here, it's because my wife's going into labor because she's like 39 weeks pregnant. But
what the fuck?
I remember.
I'm sorry. That's crazy. That's crazy that so much time has passed from, JD Vance having the allegations or, the rumors about JD Vance and Erica Kirk. And then like all of a sudden his wife got pregnant and why are his eyebrows so blonde? He's just so creepy.
We go out to dinner like right before the UFC fight. And we're, of course, checking the weather report to figure out what's going on. And, my wife normally likes to come to the cool stuff of being vice president. That was the one where she was like, it's hot.
What?
I'm super pregnant, and I'm not going to sit out there for 6 hours. So
yeah, I couldn't imagine. Also, it was just, there was so much chaos.
Joe Rogan looks so old.
And the potential for real chaos was always there. First of all, you have the Ellipse. So the Ellipse has, 85,000 people outside?
Correct. That's right.
And for people that are watching at home, like, we could hear them.
Yes.
Like when the fights, when something would happen.
In like kind of a delayed way, right? Yeah, yeah.
You hear the cheers from the
Oh
people
my God,
that were
I don't want to
near.
hear
So
them
it was
talk
like
about
3,000
UFC
plus
stuff.
people tightly close to the octagon. And then you had 85,000 people in the, in the background. It was very eerie.
Yeah, I actually love that. Like, I love the delay reaction to where, somebody get a good punch in or, you get a takedown. And then it was almost like the wave. Right?
Yeah.
Because there was the initial center of it and then the people outside of it.
It was pretty sick.
It was pretty sick. It was very cool. I think Dana said not once in a lifetime, or not once in a generation, or once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's once ever.
Yeah.
I don't see any other president. I mean, if you become president, you're not going to do that, right?
I don't know, man.
I didn't want to do it.
Oh,
It's actually very cool.
my
It's
God.
very cool.
Yeah.
Get it over with. Do it once. It was the only time in the history of the sport where there's been 7
Okay, this
stoppages.
barely
seven
came out
knockouts.
yesterday.
Like every single fight was a
Oh,
knockout.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, every single
Oh
fight.
my
Okay.
God.
But the thing is, like, we've had 7 knockouts in a card. I think this last weekend we had 10 stoppages. But That was different because it was like 14 fights. Right. It was all fights. Every single fight was knockout.
So the last fight, when did you realize that was over?
With Connor?
Yeah.
When he fell down the second time, I was like, this is not good. For the first time, I thought he just slipped. It's hard to tell. It's wild. It's a moment. I thought he slipped.
Sorry,
And then when
I
he
don't.
threw a kick again, I'm like, oh, I don't know, his leg just gave out. It didn't seem like,
Turn
I'm
down
still
the
hoping he's just slipping.
voice.
He's just freaking out. He's
I don't
like, 5 years.
care
And then he
about
turned
the
around,
fighting
he
stuff.
and there was
I
fights, yeah,
really
and that's all the way,
do
you know,
not
he went
care
back to
about
fight, and
UFC.
he's like, get up. And so
I
that's
do
why
not
he's
care
like,
about
fight.
MMA. I do not care about boxing. I do not care about Tai Chi, or I do not care about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, I don't care about any of these physical fighting contact sports. I cannot emphasize that enough to everyone in my life. Oh, they're still talking about fighting. Okay.
Some life-changing money for one more fight after that performance. I have a feeling he'll take it.
What could he fetch for his next fight? Like 50 more?
It's a good question. You know, I don't know what his contract is. I don't know how it works. I don't know what most anyone's ever. I try not to pay attention to that stuff because I'm not on the business end of
So
it.
it's just like
It's also, I mean, I want to get paid the most amount possible. That's my perspective. But my job is just to analyze and to see what's going on.
I do not care about those sports. I do not care about those sports at all. Even if women played those sports, I do not care. So when do they start like talking about politics, bro? Hulk Hogan? Oh god. Wrestling? Oh, here we go, Bella.
So very supportive of like Trump. I think it was Shane Gillis at a roast where the joke was they were roasting Tony and they're like, Tony Hinchcliffe is the only dude who would be excited if JD Vance was here. And I was like, one, that's a very good joke, and number two, I feel like I'd made it. Like, there have been a few moments where I feel like I've made it.
When you're the vice president of the United States. I think you made it.
When South Park spoofed me, I felt it more than when I got sworn in as vice president of the United States.
That's hilarious. That's very funny. This
Bro,
episode is brought to you by the Farmer's Dog. Here's a
mad.
fun fact. Research shows that dogs
JD Vance was so mad that South Park made fun of him. Okay, damn, that's a long ad, brother. Okay.
6 years now.
Yeah.
And every time we go back to California, we're like, we were right.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were right. It's falling apart. It keeps
Oh,
going
wait,
further
hold
and
on.
further down
Okay.
the toilet.
California's falling apart.
Because the criticism of Austin, call it 5 or 6 years ago, is that it's a cool town. It's got its own unique culture. It's Texas,
Austin
but it's
is
also its own
weird.
thing. But that all of the blue staters moving in were going to like totally change the politics and the culture of Austin. I actually don't think that's happened.
I think the blue staters that moved here because they recognized that
Bro,
wherever
you
they were
are a
living
blue
was not
stater.
tenable.
Yeah.
It was falling apart. And all of these places like New York and really California, like especially Los Angeles and San Francisco, they're falling apart. And I have a bunch of friends that are stuck there that can't move. Like maybe they have family there or
Ooh.
maybe they have a
Ooh,
business
brother.
there.
Yep.
And they fucking hate it. And then I have a bunch of people that are trying to move, but they can't sell their house. Like, it's nuts there, man.
Yeah,
I
it
don't
is.
think people, first of all, you get gaslit by Gavin Newsom. I mean, he's just gaslighting everybody about how well, you know, the GDP was like the 5th largest country in the world. That's what California
is,
But
bro.
It's like, dude,
hey,
how-
bro,
is.
it was like that before you were the governor.
Yeah, exactly. Also, how much does a U-Haul cost if you're leaving California? And how
Right.
much does it cost if you're going to California? Because that's the real measure of whether a state's doing well.
Yeah, the state has
Really?
more people moving out than moving in, and that has never happened before.
Correct.
California, when I moved there in 1994 until I left, it was always every year traffic got worse. Every year more people moved there. Every year, and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it from the time I moved there. I was like, this place is great. It's warm all the time. The weather's fantastic. There's so much cool stuff to do. The people are great.
Yeah.
And then politics ruined it.
That's right. So my wife's from Southern California, San Diego, and so we spent a fair
Bro.
amount of time there. And I
Bro,
just, man, I still
they
feel a certain
were
sense of,
like the same politics of the
every time
90s, you
I'm in LA, you can
idiot.
see why this was like the quintessentially American city. The architecture is beautiful. It's got its own vibe going. Like you said, the weather is amazing. And then you drive through Skid Row, and you're like, how could any state or any city let this happen?
Skid Row is now 55 blocks. It was 50 blocks
Yeah, dude,
just like
so-
a year or two ago.
Okay, so my first experience with Skid Row was, so Usha used to work at this like very fancy litigation firm in Southern California. Before she was second lady, she was a corporate litigator. So there's a Christmas party in downtown LA, and you get these instructions from her firm, and they're like this really convoluted way of this is how you have to get to this Christmas party. And I'm like, why do I have to follow these directions? Why don't I just put it in Google Maps, right? This is like 5 or 6, 7 years ago. So we realized that the reason why they gave you these convoluted directions was so that you could avoid Skid Row at night. And so you get to this party, you drive through Skid Row if you follow Google Maps' directions. You get there, and it's like this beautiful facility with like fancy food and fancy wine, and then there are armed guards outside of it and these gigantic walls. And I realized when I was there, you know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of going to the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. like super security, crazy wealth and privilege and status on the
What an
inside, and
idiot.
squalor
Okay.
and misery on the
But
outside. Like, it's the
yes.
first time I'd ever thought America, like this part
That's
of
what you
America,
want, bro.
is actually more like a third world country than anything that I thought we'd ever become.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Why is it that large population centers, like places like Los Angeles and New York, are almost always run by the Democrats?
Yeah.
Like, what is it about?
It's
First of all,
the
what
most
happened
diverse,
with the last
Joe.
election in
The most
Los
diverse
Angeles,
parts of the
just the primary
of
I
the
think it was
state of the country.
super sus.
Yes,
and
it
here's
is.
why it's super sus. Not
Oh,
just
here we
super
go.
sus that Spencer Pratt, who was in second place, got overtaken
Spencer-
by Nithya Raman in the mail-in ballots, but that the mail-in ballots
Here we go.
also passed a tax hike. The people voted to pay more taxes.
Yep.
In a state where you have the highest,
taxes. That's right.
They're like, we don't pay enough. That is
No,
insane.
that
And
wasn't
when
it,
you
bro.
have direct evidence that
Yeah.
they were
Bro,
recruiting
you're making
homeless
fun of
people.
Riverside.
And they were getting homeless people and giving them cigarettes and cash. There's evidence of
Yes.
this, to use their address and mail-in ballots.
Yeah, I would be the Californian Joe who wakes up in the morning and says, you know what, I'm going to go and vote for higher taxes.
I don't
'cause
pay
I don't
enough.
pay enough taxes.
I feel like we could fix this if I just pay 5 more percent.
5% more taxes. The crazy thing about it, too, is it's that, okay, so after the initial ballots all came in, it was Karen Bass was number 1, Spencer Pratt was right behind her, and then number 3, whatever this woman's
Nithya
name is,
Raman.
Nithya Raman. Okay, so you would expect the mail-in ballots to be more or less like the original ballots in terms of 1, 2, and 3. I'm not saying Spencer Pratt's going to
Right.
win the mail-in ballot, but it just so happened that the third place person in relative terms did a lot better than the first and second place person.
Disproportionately better.
Such that the Republican was actually kicked out of the race so that there's not actually a re-election in California. That to me was the crazy part. It's
Idiot,
like you were
idiot,
designing
idiot.
the vote share in order to kick Pratt
Okay,
out and
let's
put the
fast
third
forward a
person
little
into
bit.
second place. That to me is like very, very bizarre. Because what is the theory of the mail-in vote that is somehow like so much more pro Nithya relative to Karen Bass? And
that-
there's sort of this
Homes or military, or people that for some reason
Absolutely.
they're serving overseas, they're doing
Yes.
something overseas. It should not be legal.
That's right.
And the fact that it became ubiquitous during COVID
Yeah.
is a giant problem.
Yeah, so this raises one of my total segue here, side point. But so if you remember, right,
It's
as-
not
oh,
cheating.
that-
It's very
if
legitimate
you look at the
way
polling,
form of
Black
voting.
Americans, Black
voting.
Catholics are trying to default their
Okay.
I think it's the
A stutter that only shows up when you're 80? That doesn't
Yeah.
make any sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, this is a lie. You're lying. He's had 2 brain surgeries, like where they have to take the top of your head off. Literally, they have
Wait,
to take.
who are
like
you talking about?
Slamming us.
Correct.
We all saw it. Because after the debate, he's like, we got to get rid of him.
full back in there, and he literally looks like he's seen a ghost. Like I've never seen a person look back at the my life, and it was. This is such a crazy example is by assuming that they're idiots and acting like they're idiots.
Yeah.
And then, but if you're committed enough to that bit, eventually it kind of leaks out what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that was sort of what Gavin did there, is he told on himself a bit.
Yeah. Well, he's bizarre.
Dude, I will say,
he's a bizarre
so
guy.
I've only met Gavin. I think I've only met him one time in my life, and it was such a crazy experience. So the debate between Biden and Trump during the 2024 cycle. And I'm there. I'm actually doing an interview for a documentary when the debate starts. And there's this clip of me. The debate starts. I'm in the middle of this interview. There's a big screen behind me as I'm talking to the camera, which is here. And I kind of freeze. And I look back at the TV and I'm like, oh my God, like this is actually happening. Biden is imploding. Because if you remember, it was obvious from the get-go. So I go to the spin room afterwards. And that's where, all these reporters and all the surrogates of the candidates. This is before I was the VP nominee. And I'm just like, talking about how great the president did, how bad President Biden did. Okay. I see Gavin Newsom there, and he literally looks like he's seen a ghost. Like, I've never seen a person who, as good of a
because you
bullshitter as
saw-
he is, who
Oh my
realized
God.
there was no selling that performance. Like, but can you imagine, try to put yourself in the perspective of a human being. I always try to, be empathetic, where Joe Biden has just had that debate, and you have to go on CNN to talk about how great of a job Joe Biden did.
Well, my favorite is Joe Scarborough, because Joe Scarborough before it was like, I'm going to say something and F you if you can't take it. This is the sharpest Biden we've ever seen. Have you ever seen that? No, I know, it's amazing. And then after the debate, he's like, we got to get rid of him. He's got to go. He's got to go, hey, what did you say? You just said a couple of months ago, this is the best Biden ever.
That's wild.
Well, it's like, I wonder what was going on with that. Because, the debates were earlier than they've ever been before. And it seemed to me, it's like there was a concerted effort to hide.
Ask about
what
Donald
was wrong.
Trump,
100%.
honestly,
100%.
bro.
Everybody was
Please.
bullshitting.
Yes.
Everybody was gaslighting us.
Correct.
We all saw it. I remember a friend of mine who's super progressive, super liberal. When I talked about it on a podcast, I'm like, this is crazy. Even if he wins, he's not going to be the guy that's the president. You're going to have his cabinet that are running everything. Turned out I was right. And they were saying, oh, don't you understand that he has a stutter? And I said, where the fuck was that stutter in the 1990s? Like, that's crazy.
That's right.
Like, a stutter that only shows up when you're 80? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Like, this is a lie. You're lying. He's had 2 brain surgeries, like, where they have to take the top of your head off. Literally, they have to take, like, a cap.
Wait, Biden had 2 brain surgeries?
Oh, yeah.
How did I not know this?
You didn't know this?
I didn't know that he had 2 brain surgeries.
He had 2 brain surgeries. Jamie, please look this up. Make sure that I'm right. I'm
Yeah,
99%
okay,
sure
yeah,
I'm
no.
right. But I know he had
So did he
one
get a-
that
did he
was
get a
like
refund
little,
afterwards?
well, it kept him alive. It kept him
Oh
alive.
my gosh,
I
shut
mean,
the
he
F up, JD.
Were those the same
so
people
dumb.
that said that the COVID vaccine is safe and effective?
Oh, here we go.
And the
COVID
most popular vice
vaccine.
president ever. Always sticking her foot in her mouth. Always saying crazy shit.
So
how dare we
basically-
say Merry Christmas? You remember that one?
Basically, Joe Rogan is doing, PR for the Trump administration by having JD Vance on. That's the only thing I can see of this 40 minutes in.
Come on, you guys. Like, she didn't really say that. It's taken out of context. And then I go and look at it. I'm like, holy shit. She actually said that. And she really was like the very worst version of what the Democrats were producing in 2020. The thing is, they were all doing it because that was the incentives of the party. Like, if you remember that debate where it was, do you want taxpayer-funded Medicare for illegal aliens? Which, like, Medicare is the program to provide health care to the elderly that people pay into for, like, your entire working life. You see your little Medicare tax statement. And the idea that we were going to give taxpayer-funded health care to illegal aliens, it was just insane. It was a 90-10 issue, but their party in 2020 got kind of taken over by the radicals. And I think actually maybe you're seeing a little bit of that happening right now,
Nah,
where it seems like the radical organizations, the nonprofits, the donors are pushing the party in a direction that most of the voters haven't gone in. Like, you asked
Radical
why Joe Biden was the nominee, and
organizations.
I'll say
No,
something
bro,
in
it's the
defense of Joe Biden.
people.
So, like,
The people.
was he the most effective politician? No. Had he had 2 brain surgeries? Yes, and clearly had shown the negative signs of aging. But he was kind of the only candidate, if you go back to 2020, who could hold together, like, the reasonable middle-class Black American in the Atlanta suburbs
Oh
with
my God.
whatever is going on the far left of the Democrat Party. And
Oh
this is
my
sort of the issue
God.
their party has. I mean, like, to be candid, our party has its own coalition problems, and it's always tough in a 2-party system to hold everybody together. Like, I think about this a lot. I think it's really tough on the Democrats because the core of their party, like the most important voting bloc in the Democratic Party, is middle-class Black Americans. Socially moderate, even socially conservative, maybe a little bit more economically populist on certain...
Hold on. The most important part of the Democratic Party is Black. What did he say?
The Democrats, because the core of their party, like the most important voting bloc in the Democratic Party, is middle-class Black Americans.
Middle class Black Americans. JD Vance, is he like he's looking at like he's trying to figure out Democrats like strategies by applying dumb Republican frameworks to it. I'm pretty sure that's what JD Vance is doing. Because he's like trying to say who's the most reliable Democratic voting bloc. Bro, he can't admit that it's working class whites because that's what it was, right? Oh my God. Okay. Whatever, we'll let JD do it.
Socially moderate, even socially conservative, maybe a little bit more economically populist on certain business and tax issues. They don't want to give tax breaks to major corporations. They also don't want to trans the kids. That's the base of their party. But then you've also got like the crazy people. And you have to kind of hold that together. I think the argument for Biden was he was one of the only people who could hold that together, even though he was an awful politician in his own right, even before he was like old.
Well,
The
it's
president
because
says this all
he was Obama's vice president.
Exactly.
And, he's established. He's a known name. And for the people that were kind of casuals that weren't really paying attention to politics, like he's a proven commodity.
That's right. He doesn't read as a crazy person to the
Right.
general electorate, even though,
I got hairy legs. when he would tell stories like, "Oh, I'll tell you about corn pop." Like, what?
Oh,
what the fuck is going on?
The thing I couldn't get over Biden is just bad staff work, man. The way that he ate ice cream. I mean, it's like, we could bring some of this stuff up, but it's like they would get him eating ice cream in the most ridiculous, suggestive way imaginable.
I never even paid attention to that.
Oh, my God.
I
Like,
never
that's
saw the ice
just such
cream.
bad optics. Okay, so there's a clip, I want to say, from the 2016 campaign
Why
where
would-
somebody is campaigning in
Why
Iowa. I will
would
never forget in 20...
JD Vance be talking about this when people hyper-analyze him as well? Bro, if you're admitting into the hyper-analyzing of, Joe Biden eating ice cream, then you getting on stage and I'm pretty sure you almost groped Erica Kirk, right? In those leather pants. Oh my God, JD, he doesn't know what he's very naive, isn't he? He needs Peter Thiel to be telling him what to do.
2024. in 2020.
This is how immature we are.
I know. You gotta have a little fun sometimes, though. But in 2024, somebody's holding up a sign at the Iowa State Fair. I think it may have been one of Vivek Ramaswamy's events, and the sign says, "Eat the corn dogs, you coward." And it's one of the best political signs I've ever seen.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah, you'd have to be a very manly man to be able to eat confidently eat a corn dog.
Yeah, I don't know that I can do it, Joe.
I eat them. They're good.
Yeah, but
they taste good.
Are you? I love corn dogs.
I've been photographed.
You've been photographed eating a corn dog?
I'm sure someone has.
What?
I've eaten corn dogs.
This is what men talk about?
I try to eat my corn dogs.
Honestly, tell me, chat, this is what men talk about. Men talk about not wanting to eat corn dogs in public? That's what they're afraid of?
That's between me and my kitchen.
I'm not scared to eat a corn dog. I just think it's funny that people they're so afraid of being anything that looks like a dick. You can't. Bananas, corn dogs.
You gotta be careful when you're in politics. This is an optics-based business here.
What are those popsicles? The ones that... Yeah, I get it. I mean, but it's just like that's how crazy we are. That's what weirds people out. The way someone eats a hot dog. That's like, okay.
Well, that's where we are, man.
Yeah.
You guys were saying the way that Joe Biden ate his ice cream was gross. Oh my God, bro. And then JD Vance is trying to backtrack on it because he knows
between, the crazies and the real reasonable Democrats is so stark to me. And it's also with the right. It's like the party's always defined by the worst examples of the right.
That's right.
Or of the left. Whatever it is, whether it's Patriot Front or whether it's Antifa.
Okay, so who do you think is the worst example of our side? Like who do you read about on our side and your reaction is holy shit? And don't say JD Vance is going to be a very awkward interview.
No, I'll tell you.
I'm screwed with you.
Well, the people that, one of the things, I had James Tallarico on the
Loser,
podcast, and
bro.
one of the things that I think he has a really good point about, even though I know you're Catholic and you're very religious, putting the 10 Commandments in schools, I don't think is the right way to do it. And this is a guy, Tallarico, who was in seminary and is very Christian.
Mm-hmm.
He just thinks that even though he believes in the 10 Commandments, if you're just only representing the Christian faith in these schools, you're forcing your religion into other people's lives, and that this is going to push people away from Christianity rather than encourage them to pursue it.
Honestly, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I think you never want to force things on people, and I do. I think one of the core Christian contributions to Western civilization is the idea of freedom of religion. It's actually very much a Christian idea because you recognize the dignity of each individual, and part of recognizing that dignity is that each person has to find their own pathway to God. You can't force this on anybody. I don't think putting the 10 Commandments up in school is like forcing things on anybody.
But it's public schools. So, I mean, if you're going to do that, why not put Buddhist scripture? Why not put
exactly
Muslim stuff? You could make an argument why you should have a bunch of different religious tenets in schools.
I think in the Supreme Court there actually are a lot of different sort of historical, cultural, legal documents that are up there, and I want to say that Moses coming down with the tablet is one of them. But I think there actually are other cultural, maybe even other religious elements of this, like
because that's fucking legal precedent. I mean, like in the courts you have the freaking British like law or whatever the hell it's called. I am not no lawyer. I'm sorry. Shout out to all the law students. Y'all really know what you're doing. Not me. I don't know nothing about law. But yeah, that's why, because the precedent is from way back whenever, It's historical.
Where you recognize that a big part of sort of the law-giving tradition in Western civilization is some of these religious texts, not exclusively Christian religious texts. Obviously, some Jewish. There's like an important contribution from the Muslim world in this. So I don't think of it as exclusionary, while also recognizing that America is a society. Our founders were people who were very much influenced, even if they weren't Christians. A lot of them, of course, were, but were very influenced by Christian culture and articulating American law. So my argument would be, even if you're not a Christian, like does seeing the 10 Commandments. Let me put it a slightly different way. Does seeing the 10 Commandments force religion on a non-Christian child? I mean, my argument would be no, and I'd illustrate this by saying, well, there are all of these ways in which you actually could try to force religion on a child.
Okay, but these are is seeing trans people forcing forcing the kids to trans themselves, you can't. This is JD Vance is such a bad obvious hypocrite, bro. You can't be making these arguments in favor, the woke MAGA. This is JD Vance is woke MAGA. This is so lame. He can't even. His arguments are going to fall apart eventually.
child, right?
Well, it's not the worst way to force religion on a child, but to have it and not represent any other religion. This is Texas, by the way.
Sure.
So what he's talking about was that there's these Christian nationalists, these guys that are very wealthy that are trying to fund Christian schools and trying to defund public schools or any other kind of religious school.
That's
and
what
they want to do,
J.D. Vance
and
is
they
in
passed this
favor
to get
for.
the Ten Commandments in all public school classes. And he's fundamentally opposed to that as a Christian because he thinks it's going to force people to have this in their class and it's going to push people away from Christianity.
I mean, I understand the argument. I just don't see it that way. I mean, I guess if
I kind of
I'm
agree with
if I hear you, but if I'm a non-religious student and I'm sitting in there and I see the Ten Commandments, at the very least, I think I can appreciate it. I mean,
okay, but what if you're a Hindu?
Sort of
what if you're a Hindu? What if you're a Muslim and you are seeing that represented, but not your faith?
Well,
exactly.
First of all, I think that I mean, I'm pretty sure Muslims, I'm not hardly an expert on Islam, but I think all of the Abrahamic faiths recognize the Ten Commandments as like a significant thing. But I think if I was a Hindu looking at the Ten Commandments, I mean, again, it's hard for me to say this, right, from my perspective, but I certainly went through an atheist phase in my youth. And what I would see that as a non-religious person or a different religion is I would say, this is like an important cultural element of the Western civilization, which is the foundation of the classroom that I'm sitting in. And this idea that the law comes and is sort of above any man.
That's what it's about,
even if
Western
you don't believe in God
civilization,
yourself, I
huh?
think that's like an important concept. I mean, if you look at the Ten Commandments, probably 8 of them are something that I would hope that everybody would agree with, even if they're not themselves religious. So I guess here's my view on it. Like, I would not be offended if I sat in a classroom as a Christian, or if my kids sat in a classroom as a Christian and saw a religious text that wasn't Christian on the wall. I would encourage them to see that. No, I'd encourage them to see that as a learning experience.
What if it was from the Quran? What a bunch of
I guess it depends on what it was, right? If
Right,
it's like something crazy, but no, I mean, if it's something that is like culturally interesting, I guess I don't have a problem with my kid reading something.
The problem is it's mandated. Like if you have a classroom and the teacher is Christian and the teacher wants to have it in their classroom, maybe that's one thing. But if you're mandating that you're going to have the Ten Commandments in classrooms, that's a different thing because now you're pushing Christianity on kids. And this is Tallarico's position. And as a Christian, he's saying, I think this is going to push children away from Christianity.
So again, I understand what he's saying. I think that part of living in a society where you have different people with different perspectives, but you do have, I mean, Christianity is the majority religion of the United States. It is the religion that was extraordinarily influential to our founding, to the constitutional principles. Again, freedom of religion is itself not really a liberal concept. It was originally derived from a Christian idea about free will and the dignity of the
what
person.
is liberalism derived from? It's derived from Christianity.
You're going to have exposure to different things. And if a state legislator in a majority Christian state wants to, it's not like they're putting the Ten Commandments in front of these kids and saying, you have to read this and write it 500 times a day. They're exposing kids to something. And I'm comfortable with kids being exposed to a lot of different things. I think that's part of living in a society where there's a free exchange of ideas. And what I worry about with Tallarico's sort of perspective here is again, I'm not saying that I don't want kids to be exposed to anything that is outside of the Christian canon. Like I actually want my kids exposed to things. I write about this in the book that I think it's important to have a grounded enough faith that you can engage with a lot of different ideas and still ultimately, sort of hold on to your Christian faith. But isn't part of just
why
living
are you
in
trying to ban books?
Pluralistic democracy that people are going to be exposed to different things? And I would kind of put it on Tallarico in a slightly different way. That for a long time in this country, there were actually Supreme Court rulings that said that you cannot pray in a school, even a student organization led by the students, or that you cannot put the Ten Commandments up, even a teacher who chose to do it in their own classroom. And so I think you're always kind of trying to strike this balance, given that we have the First Amendment in this country, between allowing the practice of religious faith in public spaces and possibly forcing religion on other people. I think you have to strike that balance the right way. I guess I just say, is that if the Ten Commandments being in a classroom is the thing that you think is forcing religion on somebody, was he equally offended when the Ten Commandments were like quite literally prohibited from being listed in a public building?
I don't know if he was offended by that or if he was opposed to that. But the idea of being exposed to is one thing. It being mandatory is another. And to mandate that in classrooms is a different thing because you are clearly promoting Christianity. And his position is that promoting Christianity in that way is going to have an opposite effect on children. You're pushing it on them. Instead, you're not just exposing it to them, you're pushing it on them. And especially if you're pushing it on children who come from a household that has a different faith.
I guess I just think the balance in our country the last 30, 40 years has actually been much more in the other direction, which is that we try to completely remove religion from the public square. And I think that poses its own problems because, people practice their faith in all kinds of ways.
But don't you think that that's the responsibility of churches and synagogues and wherever, that like if you want, and in the community, if you want to promote religion, promote it that way. But promoting in public schools should be just educational. And if you're in a religious class and a class is teaching about religion, that's a different story.
Well, you're right. It's certainly the responsibility of churches and synagogues and mosques and so forth. But I also think that, the late Supreme Court Chief Justice William Rehnquist sort of said this, that if your approach to religion in public life always and everywhere is to push it out of the public square, then you're actually embracing a religion of your own in the public square, which is secularism. You're just taking one religion and replacing it with secularism. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm kind of comfortable with people of different faiths sharing the public square together. But part of that is that if I'm in a 95% Christian community and my local city council wants to put up a nativity display on Christmas Eve, I'm okay with that. And that was actually, like, for a long time in our country, actually prohibited.
Yeah.
And so what I think is that we sort of put ourselves in this frame in this country where we said every public display of religion is somehow illegitimate. But I mean, I don't know. I try to live my faith in a way that's consistent across different spheres of my life. I don't preach to people. I don't like walk into the White House and tell my employees, you need to follow Jesus as your Lord and Savior. I just try to live my life in a way that hopefully makes people a little curious about what motivates me and what inspires me. But I also don't think that the expectation should be that we tell religious people they're not allowed to be religious in the public square, because I think that's what we've done over the last 30 or 40 years. I guess, we can agree to disagree. I see the Texas thing as an attempt to correct that.
This episode is brought to you by Fox Nation. Real American Freestyle Wrestling is exclusively on.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit. That's crazy. That's crazy that JD Vance would that openly say that
very wealthy people
we need
who are
to
Christian
promote
nationalists who want
Christianity like
this
that.
to be, they want it to, what is going on here, Jim? We got Bible stories become required reading in Texas public schools. Yeah, see? Well, now you're taking it to another level. So this is June 26th. This is very recently. That is that kind of thinking and that kind of mindset is what bothers me the most about some Republicans.
I see what you mean.
And then there's people that, again, they live their life in a very beautiful way, and they follow the teachings of Jesus Christ, and they're very admirable, and I think that's very attractive, and it makes people very curious about that religion. I think that brings people to Christ, and I think it brings people to religion.
Sure.
But then there's people like, did you read that report that came from at the start of the Iran war, where there was a guy who was an officer, non-commissioned officer, who was at a briefing, and this guy came in and was explaining to them that they didn't need to be afraid because this war was important because Trump had been anointed by Jesus Christ to bring about his return, and the way Jesus is going to return is by bombing Iran.
Yeah,
I did not see that report.
Okay,
that sounds pretty far out there to me.
This is the kind of right-wing thinking. So here it is. Military commander tells troops bombing Iran is part of God's divine plan. So we started getting calls in the wee hours of Saturday morning from people saying their commanders were just jubilant about this, trying to tell people, don't worry, it's all part of God's plan. They promised a 200-mile-long river that is 4.5 feet deep, filled with nothing but the blood that their weaponized version of Jesus will spill at the Battle of Armageddon, Weinstein said. What was the one?
Crazy.
There was an article where the guy was explaining the actual quotes that the one officer was telling him, the one commander. Yeah, but it's not that. It was very specific. It was very specific what he said.
I mean, for what it's worth, my attitude on this stuff is, I mean, first of all, as a Christian, you sort of believe that everything is part of God's plan, even things that are ultimately very terrible. I mean, you kind of have to make accommodations.
Let me read the quote. He urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan, and he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelations referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. He said that President Trump had been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth.
Okay.
If I'm in that meeting, I'm like, hit the brakes. Hit the brakes. What?
That's where you need some of the psychedelics we talked about at the last Joe Rogan JD Vance conversation.
That would definitely help.
I mean, okay, my response, first of all, like, obviously, do I endorse that? No. Do I think that it's important that people rein it in a little bit? Because I'm sure you're right. There were a lot of troops there, probably a lot of Christian troops there who were like, I'm not sure this is exactly right.
Right.
But the important point is, I think it's important as a Christian leader, as Christians, period. One of the things we have to do is just have humility in the face of God's plan. There's a lot that we don't understand. There's a lot that we don't get. And I think especially on matters of war and peace, the approach that I try to take is you try to make the best decisions you can.
Bro, he's not denying that
they
were saying this is a war for, Armageddon.
That's the attitude that I take. So for that, what I would encourage that NCO to say is, you know what? God is in control. We don't know what's going to happen, but let's pray and try to do as good of a job as we can. Trusting in God. If I was speaking to a group of Christian troops, that's what I would say.
But you're speaking to a group of troops.
Sure.
You don't know if they're Christian.
Yeah,
you don't know, I mean, you're essentially letting these people know that you believe that Trump was anointed by Jesus to bomb
and it's
Iran.
this holy
so that
war.
Jesus can come back to
Jesus
earth.
come back in a fire
If I was
of
there,
Armageddon.
I'd be like, can I get the fuck out of here?
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. I hear you.
Look,
Look, yes, and that is the first that I've ever heard of this particular story.
How have you not heard of this and Biden's 2 brain surgeries?
Apparently, I live in a bunker, man.
Oh my God.
That is wild. Okay, here's the other thing I'll say is having heard about this for the first time just now, to your point
Backpedal,
about the media,
Andy.
I do think it's possible, let's be honest, that whatever that dude said, maybe it was good, maybe it was bad, has been misreported by the press. So I always have a filter on this stuff. Like, I don't automatically assume.
It's also possible that this is the other thing. He said the commander supposedly had a big grin on his face when he said all this, which made his message seem even more crazy.
And I think that's, again, I don't think anybody...
Misreporting? Okay, so now JD Vance is taking the attitude he took about the misreporting of they're eating the cats and the dogs. Wow, I can't believe JD's lying like this.
War is sometimes necessary, but it's never a good thing. And I think that's like a fundamental Christian principle. Is there are just wars, there are necessary wars, but war is always something that you try to avoid.
Right, but saying that this is what's being referenced in the book of Revelation.
Yeah, dude, I think that is nuts. I also don't know that I want to confirm that this person actually said that before teeing off on it, because what that sounds to me is like somebody butchering or misrepresenting something that somebody that I know might have said.
Quite possible.
So you got to be skeptical
also
about
quite
this. That's all I'm
possible that you
saying.
got a really loony guy who is a Christian nationalist, who is a commander, and who is in this position where he's actually excited because he does think that this is a holy war and this is going to bring back Jesus.
Well, it's certainly possible. I mean, America's got 330 million people, and we've got a lot of people who believe in a lot of things, but I can assure you that we don't encourage people to talk like that. And again, all I can do as a Christian leader, I'll look into that story certainly, but all I can do as a Christian leader is talk about how I think about questions of war and peace, which is we try to do the right thing. We try to figure out what it is that is consistent with Christ's moral teaching, and we try to, comport our foreign policy with the cause of justice. And that's what we try to do, recognizing it's always going to be imperfect. But I don't think that we should ever have an attitude towards war like this is a great thing. I'm going to grin and smile about that. All I'm saying is I'm skeptical that anybody took that approach because the media misrepresents everything.
Do you think that the way that you just described it aligns with our campaign in Iran?
Well, I think that the goal is certainly good, which is to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. And I think that there are obviously a lot of questions about how best to achieve that. There's both a short-term and a long-term piece of it. I think the short-term piece of it is effectively what's already been done, which is you destroy the nuclear sites and you destroy and eliminate the ability to rebuild the nuclear sites. I think there's a longer-term thing, which is where like a lot of debate is focused on right now, which is that building a nuclear program is hard, but it's not impossible. And it's expensive, but it's actually not even that expensive. If you look, you could go on YouTube right now and find out how to build an atomic bomb. So part of our Iran policy, and this is where I get frustrated with the people who say you should never negotiate with Iran. Part of our Iran policy is like solving the long-term problem. That if we could create the sort of circumstance where Iran would commit not just to not have a nuclear weapon right now, but over the long term to not try to rebuild that capacity, I think that is a good and valuable thing.
If it was your call, would you have done exactly the same thing?
Well, what did the president said publicly that JD was less enthusiastic about it, I think was the exact phrase that he used. I mean, my attitude towards this man, as you know, is the vice president, I'm not a public commentator. Like, my job is to give the best advice I can to the president of the United States. I think he's said a little bit about what that advice was. But once the president makes a decision, so long as I think that it's legal,
weren't they trying to pin it on him?
Whether you agree or disagree with it, what we've done has been legal. My attitude towards it is I try to make it as successful as possible. And I've got friends, of course, I think, you've expressed some skepticism of this. I've got a lot of friends, both in private and public, who've expressed skepticism of this, who say, well, this is terrible, we disagree with the decision, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not a public commentator. My approach to this is not to Monday morning quarterback a decision that was made 3 months ago. My approach to it is to try to make it as successful as possible, which is why I poured my heart and soul into these negotiations, which is why I've tried to make that goal, Iran not having a nuclear weapon, something that's not true, not just now, but is true in the long term. And that's the way that I try to approach it.
So what is going on with Iran where it seems like the president keeps saying that a deal's been reached, negotiations have been successful, and then it all falls apart and we start bombing them again?
Yeah, so how long do we have here? Because
we got as much time as you need.
So I have to explain a couple of things in the background so you sort of fully appreciate, people fully appreciate what's going on here. So number one,
go ahead. Let's hear the mental gymnastics
within the Iranian system. You have, and you sometimes hear hawkish Americans say this, that they're all crazy people. They want to bring about, the 12th Imam, the apocalypse, and all that stuff. Right. There are people in Iran who believe that. They're also pragmatists. You've got the crazy people, you've got the pragmatists. Okay. So when we struck this MOU, and really what the MOU says, and it was misrepresented more than almost anything that I've ever worked on in public life. What it says is Iran is going to open the Strait of Hormuz. The violence is going to stop, and then we're going to negotiate to see if we can come to a broader deal on the long-term nuclear issue. That's what we wanted, and what the Iranians wanted, of course, was long-term economic and sanctions relief. Now, here's the problem with where we are right now. And I guess my summary view, Joe, is that I, of course, can't predict the future. I don't know exactly where this is going to go, but I think fundamentally we are on the right trajectory. It's just going to be really messy, and there's going to be a lot of stops and starts. So what happens? The first week after we sign the MOU, we get 20 million barrels a day of oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what it was before the war. The price of oil comes way down, and there are elements. The hardliners in the Iranian system kind of freak out a little bit. They're like, oh, shit. then we just give away our major leverage point. Screw nuclear weapons. We just gave away the so in this MOU. And so there was this kind of freak out in their systems. They shot at a couple ships. We responded.
No,
I think
that's
that's
not what
entirely
happened,
appropriate,
huh?
of course. If they're going to shoot at ships, we are going to shoot at the people who are shooting at the ships, or we're going to destroy the facilities that they're using to shoot at ships. So that happens. Okay, and then the Iranians are like, oh, no, fine. You're right. We shouldn't have been shooting at ships. So then they come back to the table. And there's a few more days of negotiation. And then the phase that they're in right now is the hardliners have really, really reacted strongly to all the oil that's coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. And they've basically said, we're going to try to shut this thing down. We're scared about losing our leverage. Now, the pragmatists in their system are saying this was a mistake. Let's keep on talking. And again, do I know how this is ultimately going to shake out? Of course I don't. But what we're doing is a delicate diplomatic dance where we're using economic leverage points, we're using carrots and sticks, we're trying to talk to the pragmatists, and then of course when they commit acts of violence, we're responding to it. And all those things are happening simultaneously to get us on a better trajectory. Now, that said, yes, right now they're shooting right now. Last night they shot at some ships. But with all that said, is their nuclear program still destroyed? Yes. Are the straits not necessarily fully pre-war traffic, but are we getting enough oil and gas out of the Strait of Hormuz to prevent a worldwide energy crisis? Yes. And all of these things are happening in the context of the broader negotiation over the nuclear program. You never know where this is ultimately going to end up, but that's where we are. And then can I just say one other thing about this? Because there are people, you see Mike Pence, who's sort of a super hawk, my predecessor, who say this. There are people, who are super hawkish in the American system who have attacked the deal and frankly, in some ways, have tried to derail the deal. And what I always say to those people is, what is your proposal? What is your actual argument? So just take the Strait of Hormuz, like the
Obama-Iran
narrowest,
deal.
in some ways, the most important part of this back and forth right now. Strait of Hormuz is a narrow waterway. To the extent you shut it down, you shut down 25% of the world's energy supply. Okay, Joe, you could take $100,000 and go buy a bunch of drones on the black market and post yourself on an island in the Strait of Hormuz or near it, and you could fire drones at those ships. Okay, now what does that mean? Some oil and gas is still going to get out because some ships and some ship captains are going to say, screw you. Now, the United States can help that, right? We can shoot down some of those drones. We can shoot down some of those missiles. And so we can facilitate the flow of traffic. But the people who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians, the reason why that's fundamentally idiotic is because so long as you have some person who's willing to fire off a few cheap drones, you're going to have some ship captains who say, no, we're not willing to do this. So we got to kind of use all tools at our disposal. The military is one tool, but diplomacy is another tool. And I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who are like, you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. Well, then what is your proposal to get people to stop shooting at ships in the Strait of Hormuz? You can bomb them. You can take away their radar. You can take away some of their drones and some of their missiles. But it's just too easy to fire at ships in the Straits. So you've got to actually be willing to talk and to try to figure out the problem.
What is their proposal? The people that think you shouldn't negotiate with Iran.
I think that their proposal is to bomb and bomb and bomb. And the honest view, Joe, is that they do not actually have a solution. If you actually ask them, what do you want us to do? What is the goal that you're trying to achieve? They'll say things like, well, just bomb them to oblivion. Okay, we can do that. We can drop a lot of bombs, but what does that accomplish if there's still a crazy person who's still unwilling to shoot a few drones at the Strait of Hormuz? What the president has done, I think very, very capably, has said, we're going to use military force in this situation when it's connected to something we're trying to achieve. So if you shoot at ships, we're going to shoot at the facilities at which you used to shoot at the ships. But we're not just going to do something open-ended indefinitely. We're not just going to bomb and bomb and bomb. We're going to try to use our military force as one of the many tools that we have to solve the problem. And obviously, I'm biased, but I think that's exactly the right approach. I think you have to read between the lines a little bit, because if you look at what Mike Pence or some of the conservative hawks, like people who voted for us but have been very critical of me, very critical of the administration, if you actually look at what they're proposing, they just want the military campaign to go on
That was
forever,
wild.
and they
He's
can't
like
actually identify
Donald's
what it is they're trying to accomplish. None of them can
ex-vice
identify what it is
president.
they're trying to accomplish. And I read two things between the lines. I think some of them want us to accomplish a complete change in the government of Iran, to topple the clerics and to replace those clerics with somebody who's much friendlier. But look, what is our experience with doing that? It's
not
awful.
good.
It's
Yeah.
not good, right? And so, if the Iranian people want to rise up and change their government, that's up to them. But we're not going to send 150,000 ground troops in order to accomplish a change in a regime unless the people on the ground themselves want to accomplish that outcome. Now, we're not going to send the troops in regardless. But to propose sending in the troops, you're basically saying that the U.S. military should do the job for the Iranian people. We're not in that business anymore. We're just not. And then I think a second outcome that people are whether they're aware of it or not, is what I call the Libya outcome. So if you look at the end result of our Libya policy after Gaddafi was killed by the Obama administration, by the way, again, a very stupid decision, what happened? Libya basically turned into a failed state. You had a refugee crisis, you had people pouring into Europe, pouring into other parts of Asia, other parts of Africa. You had a lot of violence, a lot of terrorism come from that. I do think that there are people who would like that to be the outcome in Iran. But then I say, again, what is in our interest? How is it in the United States' interest to have 94 million desperate people flooding into Europe, flooding into the United States, to have, sort of the terrorist infrastructure that can get established when you fan terrorists all over the world? We've run this experiment before. And so our policy right now, what we're trying to accomplish is get the straits open, ensure the free flow of oil and gas, obviously want to keep the Iranians from having a nuclear weapons program, and using the tools of diplomacy and military power to accomplish that.
And Libya failing and the collapse of Libya is a lot of what's fueled the migrant crisis in Europe as well, correct?
Exactly. That in Syria, another failed state that was created by bad Middle Eastern policy. So there is precedent for the United States doing this. Every time that it has happened, it's caused a refugee crisis, it's caused a spike in terrorism, and it's also, not incidentally, to the moral considerations, It's led to a lot of innocent civilian deaths.
Now, what was the talk about? I think the number was like $300 billion in concessions to Iran to rebuild. And
yeah, so this is another just bullshit argument that the critics made against the deal. And again, like just to back up a little bit, this is my own little hobby horse, but look, the coalition that Donald Trump piloted to the 2024 election campaign, it was a landslide. We won 7 states. It was historic. Nobody, certainly no Republican, had actually led a coalition like that, at least since the days of Ronald Reagan. So like literally before I was alive. Okay, so Donald Trump wins this great coalition, and look, it's got hawks, and it's got people who hate foreign wars, okay? It's got people like you and people like Tucker. It's also got people like Mark Levin and others, okay? I just accept that as a reality. That's part of the coalition. I don't say that anybody is welcome or unwelcome. I say that if you're willing to sort of help us, you're going to get a lot what you want. You don't get everything that you want. What has really annoyed me about the hawkish side of this thing is they attack any effort to negotiate. They attack the president. They attack me personally. Donald Trump is betraying me. Well, wait a second. If you want to have like a hawkish policy towards Iran, the idea that Donald Trump has betrayed you because he's also trying to negotiate to get a good outcome for the American people is crazy. And so you've seen a lot of these people completely flip on him, and that brings me to the $300 billion.
I wonder if he's talking about Lindsey Graham.
What we did with the MOU is we actually worked not just with the Iranians but with the Gulf Arab states.
What is the term MOU? What is it stand for?
Memorandum of Understanding. It's the basic structure that we set up for the negotiation. So what happened here is so people sort of think of the Middle East as like Iran versus Israel. I think a lot of people do. There's also a massive number of Gulf states that are really important, good allies to the United States. You know, they and Israel don't always see eye to eye, but we're obviously very close to both Israel and to the Gulf states. And the Gulf states actually came to us and said, you know what? If the Iranians are really willing to change their behavior, we'd like to invest in rebuilding their country. Now, whether they change their behavior is something that's going to be determined over the long term, right? We want to see real changes. We want to see them stop funding terrorist organizations. And also, of course, none of that money comes from the United States. But if Iran's biggest enemies in the region are saying, we'd like to invest if they've changed their behavior, would the United States let us? Would we release the sanctions that would make it possible for the UAE and Saudi Arabia and other countries to invest in Iran? Our attitude was, well, isn't that a victory for us? If Iran's biggest enemies see that they have changed themselves so much that they're willing to invest in the Iranian economy, isn't that like the definition of a win-win? And then you get all these people saying, no, you can't give them $300 billion. It's like, we're not talking about giving them $300 billion. We're talking about letting other countries invest in Iran if Iran has changed the way that it treats the Gulf Arab countries. It's fundamentally between them, meaning the Iranians and the Gulf Arab countries.
Oh my God.
So there's this line in the MOU that basically says
Obama-Iran deal,
then we will permit other countries to invest in Iran. That's it. And that, like again, the hawks attacked us and misrepresented this and lied about it and said the Trump administration is going to give the Iranians $300 billion. And it's totally fake. It's completely made up. And it was done purely in order to politically tank the negotiation. So there's been this interesting dynamic here where, as we've been trying to negotiate, there have been these extraordinarily well-funded efforts to tank the negotiation, to prevent us from reaching a deal, to change American public opinion, which, by the way, if you look at the public opinion, people love the idea of actually getting to a final resolution on this thing. Americans do not, they're not game
because we didn't want it at all. That's
open-ended regime change wars in the Middle East. They're okay with us using the military to accomplish discrete objectives. They're not okay with open-ended obligations.
What do you think the motivation of the hawks is? Do you think this is? Are they influenced by defense contractors? Are they what's the reason why they're so keen on continuing to bomb?
I think with any big group of people, you have a diversity of opinions. So sure, I'm sure that you have people who are influenced by defense contractors. There's a lot of talk about how much is the Israeli government influencing American politics, and there are certainly certain people within the Israeli government who hate the deal, and we see exact evidence. There was a Times story that came out yesterday that basically there are certain influencers in America who are being paid in order to attack the deal. I think some of it's just pure political ideology, right? It's foreign policy perspectives that are much different from mine. They think that America should that we can basically, you can wave a magic wand with the military and accomplish whatever you want. And, it's not that simple. You actually have to have a very clear objective. Military power can accomplish a clear objective, but you've got to have that clear objective. You can't just say, we're going to bomb until something good happens. That never works. The United States has tried that before. So I think it's a combination of things.
Trump said,
but I definitely think you have seen this very discreet, extremely well-funded campaign to try to derail the negotiation and try to derail the deal. And, there's this Time article that came out yesterday. A friend sent it to me. It's like worth reading because it lists a bunch of people who have quite literally been paid by a former Trump campaign person who was himself paid by certain elements within the Israeli government. And those people are attacking me viciously for quite literally trying to accomplish the negotiation objective that the president set for the country. So
what is their position? Like, are they attacking you how?
Oh, it's social media posts. It's, they're leaking to reporters. They're attacking me obsessively, saying that we should not be negotiating with Iran. We should just keep the military campaign going indefinitely. And that is their explicit position. And coming after me saying that, people have come after me and said that I'm influenced by Qatar, that I'm influenced by foreign governments, that, I take my marching orders from Tucker Carlson. And there's just so much bullshit out there. When what I'm actually trying to do is accomplish what the President of the United States told me to accomplish, which is a settlement of this that accomplishes our objectives. Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. We have the free flow of oil and gas. And like, I should be clear, like, I don't actually mind. I don't mind that let's say certain elements of the Israeli government want to criticize the deal or have disagreements about the deal.
There you go.
I don't even mind an effort to try to influence, foreign governments try to influence the United States all the time. Israel does it, other countries do it. It's just sort of the nature of the beast. What bothers me is actually when Americans meaning American leadership, allows that influence to affect their judgment and to affect what they're advocating for. That's what really bothers me.
Oh my
People are always going
God.
to try to
Lindsey
influence the United States of
Graham.
America, whether they're allies of ours or whether they're enemies of ours. But again, when I open up the pages of Time magazine and I see that there's a literal foreign influence campaign being funded to tank the very deal that I was pursuing, and oh, by the way, many of the people who were receiving that money were actually attacking me in completely dishonest ways, my response to that is, well, go to hell. I'm going to do what I have to do for the American people. I represent Americans first, and that's the way that I've tried to do this job. And Joe, the crazy thing is, I'm like, people don't realize this. I'm actually in this, there's this massive pro-Israel, anti-Israel debate in the United States of America. I'm like the reasonable moderate. And I think that's what so many people don't realize is, I've been accused of being an anti-Semite. I've been accused
For what reason?
Quite literally for, I've been accused of trying to, I guess, some people say that I've insulted the Jewish religion, which is insane. I have a ton of respect for the Jewish religion. I mean, if you talk
what
about,
specifically did you say?
I don't know. I've never heard a good, compelling argument for why I'm an anti-Semite, even though I've been accused of being an anti-Semite by many people. But what I say to these guys is, look at public opinion. Look at the way young Republicans versus Republicans over the age of 65 approach this issue. Like, right now, Israel is losing the public opinion battle in the United States of America. It is a simple and obvious fact. Donald Trump has said that publicly. It's a simple and obvious fact.
Why do you think that is?
Well, let me finish this point.
Okay,
my attitude towards this is Israel is an ally. Like France or like the United Kingdom, we're going to have disagreements with them. We're going to have agreements with them. There are areas where we're going to have similar interests and areas where our interests are going to diverge. So my approach to this is to say, you know what? When we're partnered, great, let's work together. And we're not, let's just be honest about it. And for that, people attack me for being an anti-Semite or anti-Israel, and they don't see the writing on the wall that I'm actually just the guy advocating for a normal relationship with a normal country that's based around shared interest as opposed to based around, something else. So why is Israel losing? Why is Israel losing American public opinion?
Well, the narrative is that Israel has a very disproportionate effect on American politics.
Yeah, I see that. I see that narrative. I mean, I actually think that do they try to influence American politics? Yes. But like I said earlier, a lot of other countries do. I think
to the extent that Israel does,
I think
though?
some are better at it than others. I think Israel's definitely more effective at it than most. But I wouldn't say that they're the only effective country by any means that tries to influence American politics. I just think you have to be self-aware about it. I mean, why wouldn't you? It's a country of 9 million people. We have 330 million people. And so, of course, they're going to try to persuade Americans. They're going to try to move Americans in one direction or another. I think that's just the nature of the beast.
No, but it's more than that. The concern is that they're spying on American politicians and that there's concerns about funding, there's concerns about influence, there's concerns about whether or not politicians whether they're aligned with Israel or whether they're aligned with the United States first.
Well, there's certainly, I definitely get those concerns, but my sense is that the way that all foreign influence works in the United States is people try to manipulate American public opinion, and then from manipulating a public opinion, they try to get the outcomes that they want. I mean, this thing is a very good example of this. So, we know, I'm telling you, beyond a reasonable doubt, we know that the negotiation strategy that the president has asked us to pursue, and again, with limitations. Like when the Iranians hit ships, the president has been willing to knock the hell out of the Iranians in response. This is not just a negotiation. It's negotiation, it's military, it's all these things. But I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that there have been people within the Israeli government who are trying to actually shift us away from that policy because they want to continue the military campaign. And by the way, there are people within their government that I love, I have good relationships with. I hope, and I don't think that they're part of this. I mean, the ambassador of Israel to the United States, I think, is actually a really good guy. Obviously, he cares about Israel first. I care about America first. But there are some people within their system who know beyond a shadow of a doubt who are manipulating and trying to change American public opinion to keep the war going on indefinitely. Again, not towards any objective, but just indefinitely. So, does it happen? Yes. But I guess what I would say to the Americans who sort of see this and are frustrated by it, my attitude would be, you should be frustrated at American leaders who are persuaded by this, affected by this. Countries are going to do what countries do. I really don't. It doesn't bother me that Qatar tries to influence the United States of America, and they do. I like a lot of the Qataris, just like I like a lot of the Israelis. It doesn't bother me that Israel tries to do this. It frankly doesn't even bother me that Russia or some of these other countries do it. It's just the nature of being a political leader in 2026. What does bother me is when those operations, those influence campaigns actually affect American political judgment, because they shouldn't. Because we should be thinking what is in the best interest of the United States of America.
Do you think that
the point
Israel
of those
is affecting American political judgment?
I mean,
yes.
I certainly think that there are a lot of talking points and there are a lot of arguments that make their way into American political discourse. I think there are a lot of social media campaigns that definitely influence Americans and affect Americans. Do I think that it's been dispositive on any particular issue? I think that's a much more difficult question.
Do you think that we would have started this war in Iran without the influence of Israel?
I think the president, completely separate from any influence from Israel, believes very strongly, and again, I agree with this, that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon.
Right,
And I
but
think he was
after
willing
we
to do things.
bombed them in June, right? That was the initial attack, right?
June of last year.
Yeah.
Midnight Hammer, yeah.
Right. Do you think he would have continued with the most recent campaign if it wasn't for the influence of Israel?
Yes, I do.
Really?
I do, yeah. Look,
Why
I mean,
do you think
I think, again, and I see this, and I see it even from people that are in our coalition, and this would be my flip side to the hawks who have been attacking me or the president mercilessly over negotiation. I would sort of turn this back on some of the doves or some of the realists who have been attacking the president of the United States.
The doves? Those are the peace people?
Peace people.
That's what you call them, the
Hawks and
doves?
You never heard that phrase?
I've heard hawks.
Oh my
I've heard
God.
hawks. I don't think I've ever heard doves.
Hawks and pigeons, hawks and, I don't know.
I think it's more doves is peace,
Doves
right?
is good, right? So what I think a lot of people, I've heard this argument, is this idea that Donald Trump, was sort of, I've even heard people say he was blackmailed into this by
a
the
lot of people
Israelis.
think that.
That's not true, dude.
No?
It's just not true. I've seen the decision making up close. Again, whether you agree or disagree with our negotiation, or whether you agree or disagree with the decision to launch the campaign Epic Fury to begin with, the idea that Donald Trump is being blackmailed is crazy to me. Because again, I see the way that he makes decisions. I see the way that he processes this stuff. Like the idea that he picks up the phone with anybody and says, "Hey, like I'm going to take orders from you." No, that's just not how Donald Trump operates.
Could you understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files were
Thank
supposed to be
you.
released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
I see. So you're basically saying like the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail like the administration into doing the Iran thing.
or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, like I say this with all candor, like we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files, like we just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were
100%,
standing in
right.
front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So here's let me try.
So what was the
defend.
purpose of that performative display of the
Yes.
Epstein files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think was happening, look, I know Pam, I like Pam, I don't think there was anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me. Like, I've talked about this a lot. I'm like one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole. We go down most of them today. Look, the original sin of the Epstein investigation, and obviously I'm biased here, but it was not what Donald Trump and the administration did in 2025. It was, you have to go back to 2007, 2008. The original Alex Acosta investigation of Jeffrey Epstein, where he basically dropped the federal charges. I think Epstein ended up getting prosecuted on some sort of local thing. But the original warrant, back in 2008, what was he looking for? What was he allowed to look for? What were they collecting? It was not looking at a broader conspiracy. So that happens, okay? Epstein gets pinched. I think he goes to prison, or maybe this is when he was on house arrest. But like anything that existed from the 80s and 90s up to 2006, 2007, anything that existed that we didn't get back then was disappeared, right? So, like when people say, "Has what you've seen on the inside make you think that that Epstein never blackmailed people or that Epstein never engaged in broader sex trafficking?" No, absolutely not. What I have seen, and I've looked at most of the files, is that there just wasn't dispositive evidence. And if that dispositive evidence ever existed, it was probably destroyed after 2006, 2007. Now, like again, in our defense,
my God, no.
Yes, was there some bitching and moaning, and was there some back and forth? Yes, but we eventually collected 6 million documents as part of the effort. The president, people say the president was forced into releasing the documents. Like, again, the idea that Donald Trump could not have killed that legislation, especially with the United States Senate, is a joke. He absolutely could have killed it. What did he do? He actually said, "Nope, we're going to release these files." He thought, he was annoyed by the story. He was annoyed by the Democrats accusing him of doing things bad. By the way, like, do I think there is any? I've never seen a single piece of credible evidence that the president of the United States engaged in wrongdoing with minors, ever. So, like, when the president says the hoax, that's what he's talking about, is this democratic idea that he somehow was a pedophile. It's absurd. There's no evidence for it. Now, the Epstein document, law gets signed. We find 6 million documents. We find out 3 million of them are actually responsive, has something to do with the Epstein estate. We release all of them, with the exception of a few things that are like, the courts have said that we have to redact certain things, we can't release certain files. But like, we did release all these files. Did it take longer than it should have taken? Yes. But we did release these files. And again, the problem here is not like
Babe, it's in a box. God, I hate both of these men so evil.
Way too narrow. If there was
it's good to see you, Bashona in a box. Hope you're doing well.
That there probably was. The evidence that existed in 2007, that was the opportunity to get
So
it.
when you say there probably was a broader conspiracy, what exactly are you saying?
I think there are a few different options. I mean, look, man, you and I could literally do 2 episodes about this. I've gone down every rabbit hole. There's this funny New York Times story that's somewhat true, somewhat false, but where Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff, says, "Well, we know JD's a conspiracy theorist on this." Like I am actually. I've gone down every rabbit hole here. Look, so there's the theory that whether it was American intel or foreign intel, that Epstein was sort of using. Sort of the sex ring to blackmail rich and powerful people. There's that piece of it. You know, I think there's a separate conspiracy that hasn't gotten covered as much, which is that Epstein actually, okay, if you go back to the original Epstein guy was Les Wexner, okay, who Columbus, Ohio, was the wealthiest person in Ohio, maybe still is the wealthiest person in the state of Ohio.
That was
the thing that
Ghislaine
everybody in
Maxwell's
Columbus,
dad.
I lived there for a time, knew about the Wexner-Epstein relationship is that Epstein was his tax guy. That Epstein was like the genius at identifying weird tax strategies that would allow you to not have to pay taxes, but if you were being a little skeptical, would also say that it would allow Epstein to either blackmail people or to have a separate nexus of influence and control on rich and powerful people. And so I think there's an underreported, underexplored story of was Epstein like doing a lot of tax stuff that was not on the up and up, and is that one way in which he gained blackmail? It's not opposite of the sexual blackmail story, but in some ways it's you know, you could imagine both things being true.
Yeah, but one's is a lot worse than the other.
He was a scumbag. He was a very sick person. He built relationships with a lot of other rich and powerful people who just didn't have any real moral judgment about the fact the guy was obviously a scumbag. And again, to go back to defending Donald Trump, I know people don't want to hear this these days, but like, who was the guy? People say Donald Trump's blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Who was the guy who narked on Epstein to the Palm Beach police? That's in the Epstein files.
Right.
It was Donald Trump.
He also kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago.
He kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago. It just again,
it's obvious that Epstein was a sick man.
Yes, but if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle it, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning. And
Oh my
like, obviously it takes a little
God.
time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth. But we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
But some of the stuff that was redacted, some of the names that were redacted weren't victims.
Yep.
So yeah, I've looked into this, and my understanding of this, having looked at a lot of this but not all of it, is that it is sometimes hard to draw a distinction between victim and co-conspirator. And like, let me highlight this in a very sort of obvious way. Ro Khanna,
Oh
who's been one
my
of the most
God,
one of the loudest voices on
bro.
the Epstein file. Well, he became very loud on the Epstein files the minute Donald Trump became president. Didn't seem to care about it during the Biden administration. He actually brought one of the Epstein victims, I think, to the State of the Union last year, or maybe it was the year before last. Well, like that victim, and I'm not saying she wasn't a victim. I don't know anything about her particular case. She was also listed as a co-conspirator in some of these documents, right? So there's an idea that some of the people who were engaged in the sex trafficking were also, you know, facilitating it as well.
So they were incentivized to get more girls.
Yeah, but yes, that's right. But the idea is that it's hard to sort of, it's sometimes a little bit of a gray area between, you know, some of the people who were alleged victims were also alleged co-conspirators. And so what DOJ tried to do was kind of make that judgment as best they could and release as much as possible.
But it's clear that he was trying to get in contact with people that he felt were influential. It was clear that he was trying to get people to get together on the island and meet at parties.
Yep.
So there was something he was doing where he was trying to either influence people or compromise people.
Correct.
So it's not, there's some sort of an operation that was going on.
There is a story there, and, you know, I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on and how.
He was also trying to get scientists, and this is one of the reasons supposedly
100%.
why he got that ranch in New Mexico.
So a friend of mine has this element. Sorry, I should step back. Conspiracy theories, one of the ways you discredit conspiracy theory, I thought about this a lot, is to try to hide it. Another way you discredit conspiracy theory is by flooding the zone. So one of the things I've tried to do when looking at all this stuff is to try to understand sort of where it fits in and to, you know, try to separate the real from the fake. But one really interesting element of the whole Jeffrey Epstein saga, okay, so he dies in 2019, right? This is at the very end of the first Trump administration.
Okay.
His death coincides very, very closely. This is not my observation. This is a friend, but I don't want to reveal confidences here. It coincides very closely with the end of what you might call the era of censorship in academia. So back in 2019, 2020, we reached sort of peak academic censorship, where people wouldn't publish a medical study because it might have sort of disparate impact racial undertones, or people were getting fired from academia for not doing land acknowledgement, stuff like that, okay? I'm not saying that stuff has completely gone away, but Epstein, we know, was funding a ton of scientists. By the way, where did his money come from? He was funding a ton of scientists, but like when he died, it's almost like the era of censorship started to break. Because he was also plugged into a lot of, in academia, but also, you know, he's plugged into the social media companies. Like, this is a dude who knew everybody. He knew everybody. So, look,
so where did his
know.
money come from?
Well, from giving, part of it is suspect tax advice and setting up tax schemes for a lot of very, very rich people.
Right, but why was
And
he
possibly
motivated to influence academia, and what was the purpose?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I have theories. There's of course.
Yeah, what are the theories?
Most people think he was Mossad.
Yeah, Mossad or CIA or some other deep state, whether in America or Israel or another country, or both. look, he clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. In America, he was connected across the board. Like, he had Republican friends, he had Democratic friends. He had much deeper connections to the Israeli left of center than right of center. I don't know what that means.
He was hanging out with Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky.
Exactly. He had, again, in America, he had friends across the political spectrum in a way he didn't necessarily have in Israel.
I had one of my guests try to get me to meet him.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
2017.
See, that's crazy. Because at that point, he'd already gone down for at least one sex abuse thing.
That was my position. I'll show you the emails.
Okay.
They're kind of funny.
Which
I
guest?
actually read them on stage.
You want to say? Okay, fine.
People can find it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the guy's already ruined.
Sure. But
I Googled it, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See, but this goes back to my original point.
But this is part of what he was doing, right? He wanted to get influential people.
But you go back to the original 2007 warrant on Jeffrey Epstein. All of the really crazy shit happened from the 90s to 2007. That's when he was at the peak of his power. That's when he hadn't yet gone down on a sex abuse scandal. Like, I mean, to your point, right?
That's when
even if you have some
things were
scumbags
still
who were willing
kind
to
of-
introduce him to Joe Rogan in 2017,
people
there
were
are a lot
still
of Joe
okay
Rogans,
with
at least
that.
some, who are going to say, wait a second, I'm going to Google this guy and find out he's a predator.
A lot didn't, and that was really crazy.
A lot didn't, but some did. And my point is that would limit his influence. But if you go back to like the 1990s, the early 2000s, that is the stuff. I think that is like the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era, and
Because
we
you
had
think it was destroyed.
I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
Right. So they were specifically going after him for underage sex, and they didn't
it was
look
the
at
one
the
case,
full
but the
picture
case-
of the operation.
They didn't even try to.
Well, that was one of the things about the prosecutor was told that he was above their pay grade. I mean, it was one of the things that
He
he
said he was like CIA or something,
Yeah.
right?
He said I was told he was intelligence.
That's right. And yes, I've asked were there
Wow.
documents connecting Jeffrey Epstein directly to our intelligence agencies or anybody else's, and the answer is no. But if that shit existed, it wouldn't exist in 2026.
What is it like being the vice president? Like, how much access do you have to information? Because
So I'll give you another conspiracy. So I have like effectively unlimited access to information.
Unlimited.
But I think that one of the things that I've learned about the job is you're doing so much on the day-to-day. Like, you're calling senators and trying to get them to pass a piece of legislation. You're meeting with staff about what should go in the housing bill. You're negotiating with the Iranians or the Qataris or the Israelis about something that's going on in the Middle East. And a lot of it, like the UFO thing, like I've said that I'm going to look into the UFO thing. And I've been saying that for a year and a half, and I haven't done it yet because I haven't had the time. And so some of this is like, you just have to have the time to actually punch through the walls and to like go to the gatekeepers and say you have to open up that gate because I'm the vice president. And some of it is just hard to actually get to because I don't have the time to sort of focus on that one issue for any particular period of time. So the answer is you have unlimited access to information. The constraint is not people tell me no. The constraint is you're just so busy doing other shit.
The UFO thing, I think, would be something that I would want to
Yes,
pursue.
thank you.
I mean, just for my own personal information, I would want to know what is going on.
Correct.
So the question is, are these special access programs that are above top secret and that this is
Mhm.
our own stuff, or is this something that's far more bizarre and something that is interdimensional from another planet, whatever, fill in the blank.
Okay, is it foreign? And if it's foreign, is it
Right.
6,000
Oh my
miles away?
god!
Like
Oh
6,000?
my god! Oh my god! Oh my god! Okay, maybe we stop it there because if it just continues into BS like that, that's fine. That's fine. I said I was gonna stop at 7 p.m. anyways. So let's just say our goodbyes, and I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Here, let's play some music. Okay. All right. Thank you everyone for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the stream as much as I did. It was great. Big shout out to Luis Hernandez again for coming on. That was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Big shout out to Heather Cox Richardson for, helping us make sense of the world. That being said, I hope everyone enjoys the rest of your night. Like I said, I will be back tomorrow. Thank you for joining me. My name is Angelina Tucci. Have a good rest of your evening, and I will see y'all later. Peace.